miles as a crow flies from water. So.
Gotcha. Gotcha. I've spent a little bit of time in New Jersey myself. I used to work. I used to work for a company that was based out of New Jersey, so I was often in for trainings and stuff. In man, the name of the town's escaping me now. Shoot. Well, it'll probably come to me like halfway through while we're talking about something completely different. I'll tell you this, man. I was confused. I went out there to go to Del Tech for a little while too, just for some work training.
Okay.
I was absolutely confused. Like when I got onto the shuttle from the airport, people were asking me where I was going, and I honestly didn't even understand exactly where I was. And when we went out to dinner and stuff like that, I was so confused at how many times we crossed state lines. Like, oh yeah, it was just not my world, man. You know, I was like, how can we have gone to dinner in a different state than our hotel is in? Like it was not computing. I thought that we must have been in a town called Delaware within the state of New Jersey, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. So I was back in 2019. I was doing some work down in Wilmington. So, where I live is like kind of central Jersey.
Yeah.
About an hour from Philly, an hour from New York. And about an hour 20 from Wilmington. And on the way home, I'd end up in 3 different states. I'd end up in Delaware, Pennsylvania, and New Jersey.
That's just crazy, dude. Blows my mind. I was just watching with my oldest son. We watched did you ever see the old musical 1776?
I haven't. I've heard of it.
Yeah, as you can probably imagine, it's about, the Revolutionary War stuff. Well, it's not really about the war so much as people talking before the war, but it's pretty funny. And we were watching that with my kid, and he's never been to the East Coast, so he was asking me questions about those states and stuff, the original colonies and all that. Well, so Andrew, there's something. This is maybe super specific, but it's something that I'm ignorant of, and I wonder if you can shed some light on it. Because the other day, I know I screwed something up talking to another guy about. See, for me, it's like indigenous languages of the British Isles. That's it. Like, I don't know where the splits between, Gaelish, Celtish, is Irish, how related is Old Irish to Old Scots English even, like all kinds of stuff. Like, it's really amorphous to me. Like, I have a lot of ignorance there. Mm-hmm. I've got a buddy, John Charles, who does some language and some singing.
Okay.
That's got to be the same language that Bridget Campbell does, so it's got to be something off the Scotland side of the islands there. But you do Irish language and singing, right?
Yeah, so I've been studying Irish for 7-ish years officially, I guess.
So when you say Irish, like, what is that exactly?
So, like, you've heard of Gaelic, right?
Yeah.
So there's 6. We're gonna go back just a step further back. There's 6 Celtic languages that are still existing now, and you have two groups. You have Brythonic, which is like your Welsh, your Cornish down in Cornwall, and then Breton, what they speak in Brittany, in that Celtic part of France by Normandy.
Yeah,
and then you have the Goidelic, or the Gaelic group, which you have Irish, Scots Gaelic, and Manx, which they speak on the Isle of Man. So those 3 all derived from like Old Irish and Middle Irish, and it was around the 1500s where they kind of, you can start really seeing like the divergence started.
Oh, I see. That's more recent than I would have thought.
Yeah. So like the best, and like I was actually telling this to a friend earlier. So like especially on the East Coast here, you'll hear a lot of Irish Americans refer to the Irish language as Gaelic, and that's what it was referred to probably 120 years ago, like with the Gaelic revival in the late 1800s and early 1900s. But then Irish kind of became more of like a nationalistic thing.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
So and the reason why we don't call Scots Gaelic Scottish is because then it would confuse it with Scots, which is Germanic language.
That's the one that I can that's the Robert Burns language.
That's it's like semi-
intelligible for somebody like me. Like I can kind of guess what he's talking about.
Yeah, so linguistically, you could say it's a sister language to English.
Yeah.
And it diverged from Middle English around that time, around the same time, or maybe a little bit earlier, 1300s. And the border region was very fluid on where the border was for a while. So you had people on the Scottish side and on the English side kind of speaking the same dialect of English. And then that became known as Scots later on, probably 1600s or so, when who was it? James the First, I guess, was king, or the sixth, the fifth.
One of those.
The English monarchs get confusing because then they start having two numbers, because James was he was the first and fifth, I think, or the first and sixth. He was the first of England, but the sixth of Scotland.
Yeah. It doesn't help much that they really only had 3 names that they were just rotating through the generations, right? It's which James or George are we talking about here, or Edward? Yeah. So it's something that I'm deeply ignorant of, but very interested in. And it's part of I feel like as I've gotten older, I think that the constant shifting of language is so interesting. I definitely would have been what you might call a grammar stickler. Very much in the thought of there's an exactly correct way to spell things. There's an exactly right way to say things. Precision in language is important, etc. But it feels like the more I learn about how language actually functions and the history of any language, the more I feel like that is silly. It's silly to say there's one right way for anything just because it's always changing, man. Things just don't I guess the written word kind of helps to freeze some things in place. But without writing, especially, stuff just changes constantly, It can be hard to distinguish.
I was I saw a thing about there's this theater company in England that they perform the Shakespeare in the Shakespeare plays in the language of the time. So Shakespeare wrote in I think it was modern English by the time he was writing.
Yeah.
But it was a little bit before it was known as the Great Vowel Shift. So So words sounded differently, and there were a lot of puns and rhyme schemes that worked in the spoken word, but in the written word, you don't see it.
It doesn't come across. Yeah.
So they're basically I think they're from the west of England, and so they had that West Country kind of Hagrid sound. Is the best way to say it. And they kind of sound like a bunch of we would think of as pirates.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
And they would do these Shakespearean plays, and it totally changed the performance of it, because then all of a sudden all these jokes and puns and different rhymes started coming out that you wouldn't get if you just saw your local company doing King Lear.
No, that makes sense. I feel like that jogged a memory. I think I might have seen some little excerpt of I think it was a father-son duo that were, I wonder if they were working on the same project, because I remember them bringing up a joke from, now I can't remember which show it would have been from, but somebody's talking about how you sit around for, if I had read it, it would have been something about hours and hours and whores and whores. Which, dirty little joke about whoever they were talking about, right? But then in the spoken, they're saying in the spoken accent of Shakespeare's day, those two words sound exactly the same, and that's why it would have been a joke, because you wouldn't quite know exactly what they were saying. Are they saying it would just all be hours and hours and hours and hours, or something like that, right? And that's super interesting, man. So thinking about language a lot. Do you ever get deep into sort of the mind spiral, thinking about the relationship between language, spoken language, and music, including melody lines and stuff?
All the time.
Yeah.
So I also have been studying Scots Gaelic for about 5 years.
Oh, have you?
So like talking about mental gymnastics, trying to keep my Irish and my Gaelic straight, because the best way to equate them is like Spanish and Portuguese, right? Like they're pretty similar, but they're different enough.
Like if it was Spanish and Chinese, it might actually be easier because they'd be so different. You could make distinctions. Yeah.
But yeah, like a lot of the old piping, like the old style piping and old fiddle music.
Yeah. Like
especially like up in like Nova Scotia, there's a saying like you can hear the Gaelic in the music.
Interesting.
And I definitely can start. I'm starting to hear it more. Like, the tune "Mist-Covered Mountains," the slow air.
Yeah, certainly.
So that has Gaelic words to it, "Himina Marvinya," and like the first. I'll kind of go through the first verse with you, if you don't mind. But the first verse is. Just gonna pull up the lyrics so I don't. Mess it up too much.
Please do. This is exciting. I love getting a little bit of live music on the show, and this will be the first for singing. So bring it on, man.
So the chorus, oh he mina mordvenya, oh he mina korvenya, oh he mina chorakan, he mina skoden fokyo, and then. The first verse, he megan dalan ta just an tarugig me adam fall just a kana hugs me, and even just those first two lines, you can kind of hear where the burls and where the truluas would be, just based on kind of the rhythm of the words.
The hairs on my neck just stood up as you were doing that, because exactly like as you were singing, it was almost like the muscles in my fingers started twitching to exactly those things. Like my pinky did a little burl right where it was supposed to happen, and it was like syllabically it matched your voice. That was kind of nuts. It reminds me.
And like
go ahead.
See the same with Perche de Bale, like all the kind of like the mouth music.
Yeah.
A lot of the, like, if you were to look at, I remember Jeremy was saying this on his podcast with, like the night we had the goats.
Right.
Like the words are silly, right? Like if you look, especially if you look at the English, they're like really silly. It's like, what's going on here? But like that music was a lot of it was just, it was there for dancing. And so like the words were more rhythmically important than they were like linguistically important.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So
those consonants need to kind of like express where the downbeat is, kind of thing.
Yeah. So like when you hear it sung in Gaelic versus in English, it kind of makes a little bit more sense. And then when you then realize, we're replacing a fiddler or a piper because, well, there might not be a fiddler or a piper here, or they might not have their fiddle or their bagpipes here, and it's like, well, we want to have a dance, and well, how are we going to do it? Well, we can all sing, so that's
so interesting because it makes it feel like I like that episode that Jeremy did. Like you can imagine, what I would have imagined is the lyrics being inspired only by the event, right? Like that night they had goats, and there was something about goats, man. They just sang about it a lot. But then the way you're describing it, I can imagine an alternative scenario where it's like the lyrics for a tune might be selected based upon their syllables and where the consonants fall because it functions musically. That's a thing to be considered, potentially when putting words to a tune.
Yeah, and you'll see it too, like especially like in like the milling songs or the walking songs.
Oh, that totally makes sense. Yeah,
a lot of the like the choruses will have like vocables, right? So like e hado, snadaho oro like it just like it doesn't really mean anything. It's just kind of like la-di-da, kind of the same idea.
Yeah.
And so like especially with like the walking or milling songs, it's normally one person. It's like a sea shanty basically. Is the best way to describe it. It's like there's the leader singing the verses, and then everybody joins in on the chorus, and it's to keep the rhythm when they're milling the cloth. or Mill in the Tweed.
That is
so yeah, a lot of it's all very like it's all very rhythmical, and there's a point to it, all of it.
Yeah, and that's
whether it's for work or for dance or whatnot.
It's interesting that like I think that's maybe part of what the sticking power of those kind of tunes is, that like it feels like you can get into that rhythm so completely, and like I might have not even known why that rhythm was there in the first place because I'm just sitting here listening to like the Dubliners sing the song while I type away at my computer or something, right? But there's like this like imbued heritage of trudging along down the road or flipping the dough over rhythmically every 4 bars kind of thing, that like you can get into that groove, man.
Are you familiar with the 3/4 March Collins Cattle?
No, sir.
So it's a lovely retreat march. I'll play just a few of it on the chanter.
Yeah.
It's a really nice retreat march, but it was originally a milking song.
And, was it?
One of the guys that I played in Catamount with found a recording of some lady on, I think it was either Barra or South Uist, like singing the words, so it just like milking the cow, and you could hear like the rhythm of the milking the udders and the milk hitting the pail and whatnot, and like I've sent that to a few guys in the bands I've run down here. Then like if they were having trouble with the rhythm, I'm like, listen to this, and then this could kind of help you, get it into your get into your head a little bit better. Because 3/4s are notorious for being played round. Yeah,
man, 3/4s will trick you. Yeah, it's like maybe if I had 3 legs, maybe that would make it a little easier. It's funny that again, I'm so ignorant of this. So there's like so many things that you're describing, like they like like a little bell goes off in the back of my brain, but I really don't know what to do with it. There's a tune that I think I've heard. Maybe it was the Dubliners, maybe it was the Chieftains do it, but I know for sure I've heard Sinead O'Connor do it, and I'm not gonna be able to pronounce it, but the chorus is like Odo.
Odo She Vahawoya.
That's the one. Yeah, that's the one. Just when you were doing your singing earlier, it reminded me of that one. I don't know if it's if what exactly was similar, if there were similar words or sounds, or just the rhythm of it or what. But well, I don't know. It brought it straight to my brain.
Yeah. So like the Oro is kind of like a greeting, like a hail, or even again like these like vocables. Like we see it like in the song like Rattling Bog, right?
Oh yeah.
It's I had a roommate in college, and there was a big debate on whether it was ho ro or hi ho
or oh ho
like, or
so many
ho
options.
ho or
right.
Yeah, I'm like, it's definitely ho ro, and he was like, no, it's hi ho, and I'm like, no, it's from Ireland, it's ho ro. They weren't like dwarves or pirates, it was not yo ho ho and a bottle of rum kind of thing. But yeah, that song, there's 2 versions lyrically, and it originated as like a Jacobite song. And then in the the kind of like the run up to the 1916 rebellion, Easter Rising and whatnot, it got rewritten to be a more Irish nationalist song, where they were kind of invoking some of these, older people from Irish history, like they mentioned, like Grania Well, she was like the Irish pirate queen.
Oh, yeah.
Would go up against like Walter Raleigh and whatnot.
I saw that musical, yeah.
And so the lyrics were like a little bit more rewritten, and that's what we hear
I see.
A lot nowadays, which is, I guess, appropriate for the month that we're in.
Yeah, yeah.
With Easter being just last week or 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. It's super interesting, man. It reminds me of Timothy Cummings was saying that like he had interpreted some old like Latin hymns, and he said that he hadn't done it yet, but he had always thought about how interesting it would be to place like grace notes right where the consonants would be in the Latin language, you know? So I guess this is kind of like there's precedent for that, you know, like he probably knew there was precedent for that. I didn't, you know, so I'm only now going like, oh, I see. Maybe that's what do I, you know, and also there's this thing that I've always been envious of about like Irish folk music with English lyrics, you know, that like I like these tunes and I like to sit down and like play them with my friends and stuff like that. But when you get stuff like what's an example like Whiskey in the Jar, you know, there's like that hum ta dum ta dum, you know, like hi takatu takata, like there's this like Irish diddling that like I can't do because I don't. It's like, you know, like it feels like you can't do that unless you speak Irish and have the right accent, you know. And it's like, oh well, do they make those fun little noises here and there throughout their songs because of this precedent? What did you call it? Vocables. Vocables,
yeah. I mean, it definitely, I would say, it definitely comes from Irish, but it's, you know, it's been something that's been in like the Irish English tradition, you know, for a while now. Like they even have like, they'll have like, this is gonna sound weird, but they'll have like diddling contests.
Diddling contests, huh?
Yeah, so like
that's a weekend right there.
Oh yeah. Like, you know, it would be like in like where they have like the tin whistle and, you know, the fiddle contest as well. But like they'll like, you know, you'll diddle or jig out a tune, you know, and they'll see who can do it the best and or whatnot. It'd be kind of fun to see some of that stuff going on.
Yeah.
I've never actually been to Ireland. I've only been to Scotland twice, but eventually I'll go to Ireland and kind of hopefully see some of the cool cultural and musical things that are happening over there.
Yeah. Oh, that's super cool, man. I think it was. I'm trying to remember. Well, I'm trying to remember things that I can't remember. So let me just instead ask you, Andrew. Like we kind of dove down a rabbit hole there. Instead of me asking you about your life in general, let's zoom out here for a sec. I want to get to know you a little bit.
Okay.
So like, and you know, this language study stuff comes into it. Like, what the heck? At what point did you decide to yourself, I'm going to study Irish? You know, but let's zoom out a little bit and tell me about where you grew up and what stuff you were into as a kid and what your family life was like and how that led to bagpipes and Irish and all the kind of stuff you do now.
So I'm from a town in central Jersey called Freehold Township. And if you're familiar with Bruce Springsteen, we're from the same town.
Dude,
that's kind of my claim to fame.
Come on, of course, Bruce Springsteen. Am I familiar?
And yeah, so I grew. You know, I'm an only child, so it was just kind of me. You know, I didn't have any brothers and sisters growing up. But like getting into the Irish and Scottish thing. So I don't have any like Scottish ancestry. I'm Irish and Italian on my dad's side, and then I'm Sicilian on my mom's side. So like,
is that Irish Italian thing because of like just a history of when immigration was happening in the United States and just like the neighborhoods that people lived in? Because it seems like a pretty common thing you'll hear that people say, "Oh, I'm Irish Italian." Oh,
it's definitely a common mix.
Again, I feel to like in so many ways, man. I am a child of the high mountain, barren, empty desert out here in the West, and so there's so much about not just heading over the pond, but so much about the eastern coast of the early United States that it's like vaguely in my awareness from history classes, but it's not a lived experience for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like when I was growing up, everybody that I knew in school was either Irish, Italian, a mix of the two, or like, you know, half Irish and then half something else, like German or Polish, or like half Italian and half something else, or or they were Jewish. Like that was like those were your options basically.
Right. Yeah.
And like with the Irish Italian mix, like they're both predominantly Roman Catholic, so that led to a factor of the mixing.
It would have been like okay to marry those neighbors because they would have.
Yeah, it's like okay, they're different. Like the Irish people are a little bit different from the Italians, but at least like they go to the same church on Sunday.
Right, right.
Saturday night, depending on how you roll. And then so New York had a lot of like ethnic neighborhoods, and both my parents are from Brooklyn, New York. So my mom, who's actually all Italian on her side, she kind of grew up in like an Irish neighborhood, Irish and German neighborhood. And my dad, it was a little bit more mixed, Irish and Italian, and like they just kind of ended up mixing. And then like my parents moved out here before I was born, so I was born in Jersey. So I kind of claim that I'm like I'm a son of two immigrants. Just they went from New York to New Jersey instead of across the pond. They went across like the Arthur Kill. Like that's like the only body of water.
They went over the river, kind of thing.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
So yeah, like that was kind of me growing up. Like that was kind of like so like it was around, and like we have more pipe bands in my county than we can like shake a stick at. It's like
living in the promised land in that way.
It's unfortunately like a lot of it is like road bands or service bands. So it's
sure,
like, it's not like we're living in Northern Ireland where like you have like 5 grade 1 bands.
Yeah.
in like a 10-kilometer radius or whatever it is. But I think the first time I heard bagpipes and realized that they were bagpipes was seeing the Titanic.
Oh, like in the the lower quarters dancing scenes kind of thing.
That, and then just like the soundtrack, like Eric Rigler was playing uilleann pipes on a lot of that.
Man.
And like Hymn to the Sea and like My Heart Will Go On, they all have the uilleann pipes on it. And the thing, so that was, we were about the same age. So I think I was like 6 or 7 when that came out.
Yes,
in 97.
I think, dude, like we're like exactly the same age, so in many ways we'll have the same cultural touchstones for sure.
And then like it was probably like third or fourth grade. I would kind of like, so my dad has like a whole big like CD collection of all sorts of stuff, but he had like an Irish / Celtic like box, like just like it was like 50 CDs or something, and it was a lot of like Irish traditional stuff, like the Chieftains and Patrick Street and Alton and Clannad and the Clancy Brothers and stuff like that, Silly Wizard. So like that would be played around St. Patrick's Day and whatnot, and I thought it was kind of cool. And then I remember it must have been like 2000, because I think I was in 3rd grade. It was either 2000 or 2001. I had come home from school on St. Patrick's Day, and the New York City Parade was on the television. And the New York City Parade is like the big parade. Like if you've marched in the New York City Parade, you've made it in like the like New York Metro Irish American world. And I remember that year it was snowing, and so like picture like all these like big Irish looking New Yorkers in like full number 1 dress, feather bonnets, fly plates, the whole bit, playing their bagpipes down 5th Avenue, but like snow is just like piling up on their feather bonnets, and their eyebrows are all white because they're covered in snow. And I was like, that looks like a really cool thing to do.
Yeah, that's a dramatic picture to paint, man. Yeah.
So then, like, kind of fast forward a little bit. In 4th grade, I started band in school, and so I started on the trumpet. And part of the reason why I wanted to play the trumpet was I was like, I want to like learn how to like play the bugle, and like I'll annoy my parents and like play Reveille on a Saturday morning. Like
the only child feeling like the house is too quiet.
We gotta make some noise. And like dude. the bagpipes, like I was somewhat familiar with piping at that point, and like there was kind of like an element of like obnoxiousness to the pipes, and that's a little bit what drew me to them as well. And that Christmas, my grandmother gave me this, like assorted pipe band compilation CD.
Oh, sure, yeah.
It was called like the Bagpipes and Drums of Scotland or something, like one of these like Scott disc compilations. But it had really good, like it had like Edinburgh City Police and Boggle and Bathgate and like Turf and District. It had like all these like good bands. So like,
you got a good one. There are plenty of those compilation CDs out there that would not have been great. So.
Yeah. There's this one that it was made back in like the 50s. It's called like the Ninth Regiment New York Guard, and it was this like National Guard pipe band out of New York.
Yeah,
that it was like they were playing on like the old like kind of like rope drums, and they were not in tune. Right. I don't even know if they were in tune with themselves, and like there'd be pipers coming in and out, and it is like listening back on it like after playing for 20 years, it's horrible.
Make you shudder a little.
It's awful. But like when you're like 12 and you're like, oh, this is really cool, and you don't really know about like good piping. But I was lucky that at least the first album was like
good stuff,
like really good stuff, and I really enjoy that. And then when I joined the Boy Scouts in 6th grade, there was a older scout who played the pipes. So I got to like see them up close in person, which was cool. So it was like they definitely got a little bit closer, and I was like, I definitely want to learn how to play these things.
Man.
And so fast forward another year or so, my friend Frank, he went and he started in this band called the Atlantic Watch Pipes and Drums, which
I've seen this them older scat.
Yeah, so when you were talking with Joe Brady, back in October, I guess is when the podcast came out, he had mentioned about his trip to Hawaii. And whatnot,
right,
and he was like, and we went with I was like, this is really a weird kind of like mixing of all these people, and it's very, it was a very small world moment.
Yeah.
So they offered free lessons and whatnot, and this guy Andy Prochnow, who was the older scout, he played in the band, and my friend Frank, his uncle, also played in the band. So like my friend Frank went to learn, and he maybe did it for about a year or so, 2 years. Didn't really get going with it, but in 8th grade, he gave me a fingering chart with how to hold the chanter and whatnot. Now I didn't have a practice chanter, but I was like, I'm gonna take this fingering chart and I'm gonna teach myself. I'm gonna figure out how to do this.
Go use a chopstick or something, right?
Well, so I was home from school one day. There was like a field trip that I didn't want to go on, and I was like, I had to work on some like English project. So I finished the project, and I went out into the backyard and I found a stick, and I just kind of like carved holes into it just to like, so I could like feel where they were.
Dude, you were committed, man.
Oh yeah. I colored it in with like a Sharpie marker so I could see them. And, but I learned, I read the chart wrong, and I learned with
your hands flipped around.
Yeah. So like 6 months, I was like, playing on a stick or a pencil or a flashlight or like anything that I can get my hands on, but it was like the wrong way.
I've got a couple of friends who had that same experience. I think that it's got to be like a left brain, right brain thing or something. I think there's just like a default setting for some of us that like, if that diagram were flipped upside down, it would make a lot more sense.
Yeah, for sure. And like having played, playing the trumpet in band and whatnot, like I already knew how to read music.
Yeah.
And I knew like, all that stuff. And I knew a lot of the tunes because like my friend Frank would give me some where I'd find some on the internet. And I was like the weird band kid that wasn't playing like, I wasn't playing like regular band music on my trumpet. I was playing like Wearing of the Green and Highland Laddie, 79 Farewell to Gibraltar and stuff like that.
This is freaking delightful, man, because for like we're like exactly the same age, and I also in 4th grade picked up the trumpet, and I also immediately was trying to play what I would eventually play on the bagpipes on the trumpet. It's like we might have been doing some of the same things on the same freaking days, man.
Probably, yeah. And I remember like I play a bit of piano, but like I'm not really like a piano player, but my dad is, and we've had a piano in the house since I was like 6, I think 5 or 6. So my mom's parents moved from Brooklyn to Jersey, and they had a piano, and it was actually it was their neighbors. The neighbor, she was an elderly lady, she died, so my grandparents got the piano. And then when they moved to Jersey, they didn't want it, so we got it because my dad plays. And then we actually ended up giving that to a guy that we know here because he kind of like fixes up pianos, or him and his sons play. And then my aunt, my dad's sister, had my dad's mother's piano when she was a kid. And we actually got that back because, people weren't playing it. So like we have an 80-year-old piano in my living room, which is
nice.
Kind of a bit of a family instrument now at this point. But so like I would like kind of pluck away, and I'd be like, like my dad taught me like the basics of like, this is where C is, and this is like, these are the notes, and like, okay, go at it. And so I'd be like, sitting at the piano with like bagpipe sheet music, trying to like play these tunes. But I'm sure like you've seen it, like pipers aren't always the best at putting like
key signatures.
So I'm like playing it. I'm playing everything with like a C natural and an F natural.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
This doesn't sound right. Like why,
dude? And then you mix in that your trumpet was a B flat instrument. All kinds of confusing.
Yeah. I was like, this doesn't sound like anything.
Yeah.
And then like my friend Frank, who was like learning, he's like, oh yeah, the F's in because he played trombone, so he was another band kid. He's like, yeah, the F's in this keys are sharp. I'm like, that does it. Yeah. And then I was like, then it clicked. But yeah, so it was like 8th grade. I made this the stick chanter, as I call it.
Dude, you don't still have that stick, do you?
I do, yeah.
You do? That's such a cool relic to keep.
It's actually I have like I'm in my like office at home now, and I have an old cedar chest that has like all my my kilts and my like Argyle jackets and stuff like that. And on top of that, I have like 2 like Rubbermaid bins that have like the kilt hose, Lingary's, Balmorals. I've accumulated some kit over the years. Yeah. And the stick is in one of those bins. So yeah, it's definitely.
That's so cool that you still have it.
Definitely been kept. I think what I'm going to do is I might put it in some like polyurethane or something just to like keep it from like cracking or whatnot.
Right. Yeah.
Because it's 18 years. It was 2004.
It's just a stick.
It's still like it's going to dry out. So then I got a practice chanter when I graduated 8th grade as like a graduation present, and I joined the band that my friend was in, and then this guy Andy Brocknow was in, and it ends up that I actually have Andy's old pipes.
Oh, do you? So, that's super cool.
Yeah, so Andy got a new set of pipes for Christmas one year, and so this other set was just like they weren't being used, and so when I eventually got to from practice chanter to bagpipes, I was using that as like a loaner set, and then we bought them off of them. And what's neat about it is like we ended up going to the same, like he's 3 years ahead of me in grade. So we ended up going to the same college. So like he was a senior, I was a freshman, but then I was like also playing his pipes and whatnot. It was just like, it's kind of like a neat, like we were, both in the same scout troop, and and it doesn't help that, we have the same first name.
Right.
So
You're just his replacement following along.
Well, funnily enough, so he's living in Virginia right now. I'm still living in Jersey, and his family runs now. Were you in Boy Scouts? I'm assuming.
Oh, heck yeah, I was. That wouldn't have even been an option if I didn't want to be, man. I was very much in Boy Scouts.
Did you guys do the Klondike Derby?
Oh yeah.
So we do that, and Andy's family runs the first aid / rescue station. Was yours always by obligation only during the very worst week of the year, like snow and mud and rain all at the same time, and potential for death around every corner kind of situation? No, but my first year we actually got 6 inches of snow the day before, so it was perfect. It was we got a fresh coat of snow, and it just so worked out that my sled was all new scouts, and this guy Andy, who was a couple years older than us, and we were all off from school the day before, and he decides to go sledding out on his farm, and he runs into he hit a rock or a tree, and he broke his leg or something. The day before Klondike. It's great, right? So they were well, you can either run the sleds yourself, or we could split you up and put you to the other sleds. Yeah, put you with other troops. Our troop was running 3 sleds that year, and we were no, we'll do it. We had a blast, and it worked out that Andy's parents they have a farm, so they have trucks and whatnot to get around in the fields. Yeah. So his mom drove him to some of the stations. So he would be on crutches, helping us do stuff. But we were 11 and just pulling this dog sled in the snow and having the time of our lives. It was fantastic. But his family runs one of the stations, and so I've been going to help the past couple of years. Help run the station and whatnot. And it's I'm like Andy's replacement almost. It's right, yeah. You just watch where he goes and what he does to know what you'll be doing in 5 years' time, right? Yeah, and then it was this year. It was around Valentine's Day or something. I was getting a card from my mom at the Hallmark store, and some lady runs into me. She's like, "Are you?" Wait. She thought I was him. I was fun fact. I was I was just hanging out with their family last weekend. So I'm not him yet, but I will be soon. That's funny, man. The best Klondike Derby that we ever had. We worked so hard on some of those sleds, and they'd fall apart or get stuck, all kinds of things. But one year it was we ran out of time, and we just ran. One of the scout leaders was a cross country skier, and he had a bunch of old skis. And we just went and took 3 mismatched skis that he had in his backyard, and just bolted them to the runners of a wheelbarrow, and they let us enter with that, and that was a killer sled, man. That was a really good sled. We had 2 sleds originally. Well, we had the first sled, and then the second one, but they were both from the 60s. Oh wow! They were solid piece of work, huh? Yeah, it was like the USS Constitution. It was hearts of oak. They were just solid. You could probably, and they were built in the dog sled style, so you could you could probably hook up huskies to them and bring them to Alaska and ride around. And then we built the third sled because we had more kids in, and I think we did the same thing. We used an old pair of cross country skis for the runners. Yeah, and I remember this might sound a little unscout like, but one year we were we were on the course, and we were coming up against a sled from another troop, and they had their sled made out of PVC pipe, which is not always the best idea.
That sounds more along the lines of the kinds of things we were usually trying.
And we, like, they had the great idea of, like, oh, let's have a race and see who can, like, get through this grove of trees. Like it narrowed into like a narrow opening where like only one sled was gonna get through at a time.
Yeah.
And it happened that year that Andy Prochnow was the sled leader, and he was not on crutches this year. He was, able-bodied. And he's like, we're not gonna lose. We're gonna win. So he's like, we're going. And so like we just like full out run.
Yeah.
And we make it through this grove of trees, and they don't. And they hit a tree with their sled, and their sled just like exploded and like, popped apart. And we're just like a
pile of matchsticks.
We're like, well, that stinks. We just kept on going.
Onward ho.
Yeah. Oh yes, Klondike I think was some of my like favorite. It was definitely my favorite event throughout the year, like besides summer camp.
It's funny that like I know what you mean when you say it doesn't sound very scout-like, because of course the ideal would be like, oh, we'd go help them and fix their sled. They're in the field and stuff like that, right? But at the same time, speaking to like all of my scouting experience, that is the most scout-like thing ever, right? Because like especially on those long camp out kind of situations, it very much becomes like this wild sense of like, we're just doing crazy stuff and we'll see if we survive. Let's go, So. That's part of what was great about it.
It definitely wasn't living up to like the friendly and kind,
right? Those parts of the oath,
aspect of the law, but
that's right. Oh, man.
So once I guess getting back to like my piping journey, I joined the band, and I was kind of like in and out of it, like active wise, just because it was a couple of towns away, and getting up there was hard with school and whatnot. And then I was playing my pipes, and I played with the scouts. I would play at events and things like that. And then when I went to college, there was a piping program at the university. It was very small. So I got involved with that, and then my sophomore year, I ended up taking over as pipe major, which was a fantastic experience. Talking about like pure leadership when you're when you're 19 trying to lead a bunch of other 18, 19, 20-year-olds.
Yeah, dude.
Both musically and teach them and whatnot, and that's also when I learned that like not everybody's as enthusiastic about bagpipes as I am.
Yeah.
But that was a good experience. And then that's also where I started. So the band at school didn't compete. Well, I shouldn't say that. We competed once, like the year after I graduated. But there was a local competition band called Catamount Pipeband. They're out of Montpelier, Vermont. And the piping instructor at the university was the pipe major of the competition band. So I got hooked in with them, and I played with them for 8 years, I think it was.
Oh.
2012 to 2021-ish.
Yeah.
And they had long distance practices, which was nice. So they would have they'd have their weekly band, weekly practices on Tuesday nights, and then they'd have a band day for like 8 hours on a Saturday, once a month. And that's like where like all the long distance players could come, because even like Vermont's one of the bigger East Coast states. Like it could still take you like you could still be like 3 or 4 hours from one end to the other, at least long ways.
Right.
Going across ways, it's like you can get across the state like in an hour.
Yeah, it's a horizontal state. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a vertical state.
It's a vertical state. Yeah. So having those long distance practices, I was able to still live in Jersey and play with them in Vermont, because I'd go up like once a month, and that was a really good experience. Definitely, and that's kind of where I got into like playing small pipes and other stuff, because like there was a large amount of small pipers in the band. Almost everybody had a set of small pipes.
It seems like that, like at least from where I'm sitting right now, it feels like the northeastern United States is kind of a hotbed for small pipers.
Yeah, well, there's quite a few makers too. The pipe maker's father's is a maker. He's Mike McHarg. He's been making pipes for a while. And then like Mike McNinch, he plays and makes small pipes. And then there's Nate Banton, who's living out in Maine, and there's another guy, the Quiet Piper. I don't know what his name is, but that's like his brand. He's Felsberg, yeah. He's out in, I think he's out in Maine as well, but he might be, maybe he's in Pittsburgh. I don't know, but he's somewhere in the Northeast. And what was great about like the Catamount experience is that we would have like Kayleys and kitchen parties like after these band practices. So like, you know, a lot of the times we'd go back to the pipe major's house, and he lives on this old farmhouse in Vermont. It was built in like the 1840s, and like
that's got to be a good setting for a kitchen party.
Oh, it's fantastic. Like if you squint hard enough, like you can imagine that you're in Cape Breton, or you're in, you know, and maybe you're in Scotland, because it's like his neighbor's farm is like right, like he doesn't have a lot of land himself, but his neighbor has a bunch of land, and there's like no houses around, and he's on this, you know, this ridge of a mountain road, and like, which leads to a lot of playing loud instruments early in the morning. Yeah. But yeah, we'd like all go back to his house after practice, and, you know, break out the small pipes and the whistle and various, you know, bodhrán and cajones and various percussion, and just play tunes like well into the morning. You know, like,
keep that party going.
Yeah, like you would be it would not be surprising to be like going to bed at like 3, 4, 5 in the morning,
if at all.
There were
right?
there were definitely a couple of times like I went to bed as the sun was coming up.
You're right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good Kaylee.
Yeah, man.
And like he basically like his wife played in the band for a while. She was a snare drummer. And then he basically conditioned he's conditioned his kids since like, you know, day one for all of them, that like, you know, bagpipes are played in the house kind of thing. Yeah. And like, so like,
while you're in my house, you will play bagpipes.
Yeah. Well, not even that, but just like they're not even like affected by the sound.
Oh, I see. Yeah,
like,
totally.
They can we can be, you know, there have been a few times where we were playing highland pipes in the kitchen. You know, like one at a time at like 3, 4 in the morning,
and the kids are just sleeping
and
away.
they're just like you know, sawing wood sound asleep. Yeah, it's like this is great. You know, you've done something right if that's your family situation, right?
Yeah, man.
So yeah, there was a lot of like, that's kind of where I got like more into the like the Cape Breton style music, and just like kind of the more like traditional session music.
Yeah.
Which is definitely more my cup of tea right now than like, I mean, I still like competing. I don't do much in the solos just because I like doing the band stuff more. Because I don't know about you, but out on the East Coast, solos are like stupid early in the morning. It's
we usually start the games with the solos. That's right.
You're like, you know, like grade 4 solos start at like 8:30. I'm like, that's just.
Well, and they say
for a lot of early mornings.
I don't know if it's similar elsewhere, but like if we usually would often save the higher grade solos for later in the day because we assume that people will want to hear those. so the lower grade ones have to get up really early.
Yeah,
and that's like, where I've always been, is in the lower grades myself. So,
and luckily, like, I mean, for us, like the contests aren't too far away. I mean, like, most of them are like 3-4 hours driving distance.
Yeah.
But like, for like a band, like if you're just going for the band, that's easy. You can leave at like 6 or 7, get there by 10, do mass bands, do your contests, drive home, and you'll be tired the next day, but you can do it all. If you're doing solos, it's like then you got to go up the night before. Mm-hmm. You got to get a hook, because like otherwise you're getting up at you're leaving at 4 to go play bagpipes for 10 minutes,
and then sit around until the afternoon for your band.
Yeah,
right.
So I've been on and off with solos, but and also too I'm somewhat swimming upstream. I like to play the tunes the way I like to play the tunes.
Oh yeah,
and especially style. I play Maestro Space a little bit more round and a little bit quicker. It's not as it's definitely more like a Cape Breton style. And if I'm gonna play 2 parts of Straspe and 2 parts of Reel in a contest, I want to play it like that. I don't want to play So that's kind of where I've diverged a bit from doing the solo contest, but just playing all the traditional stuff is just it's my cup of tea. I'm all about it.
No, I dig.
And
I have this thing in my mind that have you picked up uilleann pipes, or am I just making a free association between Irish and bagpipes?
I've picked up uilleann pipes a few times. I don't actively play them now, but this guy Mike McNinch, who played with he was the grade 5 instructor for Catamount. He actually was an uilleann pipe maker, so he plays. And then my buddy Josh, he actually is just getting a full set of uilleann pipes recently, but he had a half set. So it was
he must have won the lottery or something, right? Are you getting suspicious since he's getting a full set of uilleann pipes? Kind of going,
no.
Hey man, how you doing? What's you got anything to help your friend out with?
I think it was just I'm just biting the bullet and getting a full set.
Yeah. I'm joking, of course, but riffing off the idea that if your neighbor, all of a sudden has a Lamborghini in their driveway, you can think they won the Powerball kind of thing, right? There are some signs that you might not know they won the lottery, but there will be signs, right? And in our niche community, it would be a full set of uilleann pipes all of a sudden.
Yeah. I would much prefer the full set of uilleann pipes
over
the
Lamborghini.
For sure. I drive a Subaru Outback. That's it's rugged. It's you can get me up and down the hills of Vermont and New Hampshire pretty well.
And there's plenty of room in the back for your bagpipes. So that's the main thing, right?
Yeah. Or a bass drum. Actually, a bass drum fits very nicely
perfect.
in the back. No, but he had my friend Josh had a half set of uilleann pipes, or a practice set. So all it was bag, bellows, and chanter. There was no drones or anything. And he, I borrowed them a few times when we were in college together, just kind of playing around with them. And then he let me borrow them over Thanksgiving break one year. So I had a week where I had uilleann pipes in my house that I just playing around with. I haven't gone down the uilleann pipe road as much, but I have gone down the fiddle road.
I saw a picture of you on Facebook or something with a fiddle.
Yeah, that's been a lot of fun. That was kind of almost completely by accident.
Oh, really?
How that got started. So, back to my dad's big musical collection. Mm-hmm. There's an album that the Chieftains did that he had. It's called Fire in the Kitchen.
Oh yeah.
And it's the Chieftains went around and they played with all these different artists in Atlantic Canada and Quebec and Ontario. So Natalie McMaster, Ashley McIsaac, Great Big Sea, and so each there's a different artist on each track, and playing traditional tunes from their areas. So I kind of knew of the okay, there's Nova Scotia and that means New Scotland, and there's a fiddle tradition there, kind of, but I didn't really know that it was anything really different than just regular Irish or Scottish fiddling.
Sure.
And this was 2011. I was home from college, and my dad was like, "Hey, you want to go to the record exchange in Princeton. I was like, sure. So then in Princeton, New Jersey, about 40 minutes west of us, where the Princeton University is, there's this nice little store called the Princeton Record Exchange. And they have all sorts of CDs and records and albums, and they have a very good, like, used selection. So, like, you can go and you can sell your albums that you're not listening to anymore, to the record exchange, and then they'll sell it for like $3. So I came across this album called The Heart of Cape Breton Fiddle Music, and it was an album it was all live recorded on various dances and whatnot on like the western side of the island by the Smithsonian Institute, and it was like $3. And I was like looking at it, and I was like, well, I kind of know like a little bit of the tradition, and like this might be interesting. And I was like, there's 2 tunes on 2 of the tracks that I know from the piping tradition. There's Devil in the Kitchen and the Pete Rockadollam Do. And I was like, let's give it a go. It's only $3. Like, right. Even if I were to buy that like one track on Amazon or iTunes or whatever, like it would be, 99 cents for one track. Well, here I can get $3 for 12 tracks. That's a deal.
Yeah, for sure.
So I put it on in the car on the way home, and it's like fiddle and piano, and I am hooked like a fish. And that just started like this whole like really it's like an obsession with the music and the culture of there. And then when I got back to school that term, that September, Ian McHarg, the piping instructor, he was telling me about this whole piping tradition up there that's very similar to the fiddling tradition. Like, like the likes of like Barry Shears and whatnot. And I'm like, oh, so you're telling me I could play this music on the bagpipes as well, and not because like I don't have a fiddle, and I was studying engineering in school, so I was like, I did not have time to learn how to play the fiddle, in school without getting like kicked out for failing all my classes, because I'd be definitely more. I would definitely be more like, oh yeah, I'd rather learn how to play the fiddle than like learn about physics and concrete design or whatever.
Yeah, if we got to figure out some way to get the engineer's salary, but for the tinkerer's work, right?
Yeah. And so I just like I dove like headfirst into the music, and that $3 CD ended up being the most expensive CD in my life, because it led to other CDs being bought, it led to tune books being bought, and then it led to me about 6 years after the fact. I went into the local music store and rented a violin for it was like a 5-month rental or something. Yeah. And I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna learn how to play. And so I started taking lessons with this old lady that worked at the store, and she was very much a violin player. Like there's a difference between a fiddler and a violinist. Yeah. And like it was good to get I definitely needed some lessons on like the basic mechanics of the instrument and whatnot, but like we were not seeing eye to eye like from the get go. Yeah. Because I was you have kids, so you've probably been starting them with music and whatnot. Like all the like kind of like the basic like watered down like Americana tunes, that like everybody learns on like when they're first starting out. Yeah, that's what we were learning. But I was like putting in like a couple of like grace notes or like a cut or something like to like
flourishing on hot cross buns kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I was like, well, it sounds better. She's like, well, you gotta play it how it's written. I'm like, oh, my way sounds better. It's like your way's boring.
Yeah, that's not what the sheet music says though. So
yeah. So we eventually parted ways, which actually worked out well, because like she was going off for maternity leave, and like my fiddle rental was up, so I was like, this is perfect time, right? Yeah. And then I actually ended up getting the violin that I have is a very old violin. It's from like it's like around the World War One time period.
Wow.
And it was actually, luckily enough, it was a donation. So this guy Ian McHarg runs the Vermont Institute of Celtic Arts, and when he heard that I was learning how to play the fiddle, he kind of put it out there like, does anybody have an instrument that they'd be, willing to sell or borrow or whatnot? And this guy, Bob Mitchell, who's down in West Virginia and Maryland, he's a piper and small pipe player. His wife's a fiddler, and so she had an instrument that she wasn't using, and then sent it up to Ian, and then Ian, gave it to me as a donation.
Dang,
and
but it's not like, oh, I've got this first act, this like first act like cheapo, student violin that's kicking around. It was like a World War One relic.
yeah, it was like I ended up getting it appraised a couple years ago, and just kind of to see like, because when Ian and I were looking at it, like we saw there was a sticker inside of it that said Stradivarius 1731, and I'm like, wait,
come on.
Like, I was like, this can't be real,
right?
There's no way that I would just like get like that a Strad would just be like donated,
right?
And then two, like, there's no way that like anybody with any serious violin education would allow me to play a Stradivarius,
right?
And play like like dirty Strasbass and reels on it. Like I should be playing like Bach and Beethoven and Handel, like not like not like Devil in the Kitchen and Hiram Linton and like covered in like rosin dust and all that.
Not like flourishes on hot cross buns either.
Yeah. So,
dude, I was seeing Robert Mitchell in search results for something not long ago, like just like last week. I'm trying to figure out what was it that I was looking at or looking up that Bob Mitchell kept coming up. I can't think what it was now.
Well, I know. So he's active in the Potomac Small Pipes workshop or something. There's like there's a small pipe workshop that happens in West Virginia, like around Martin Luther King weekend. So he's been active in that for a while. So that might have been it if you were looking at small pipe related things.
I usually am, so it's like throw any day on, like no matter what I'm doing for work and stuff, there's usually a tab that has something to do with bagpipes or stuff I'm planning to buy or something, like more reeds or something like that.
Yeah.
So anyway,
normally for me, it's like I have like the BBC Gaelic radio on.
Oh yeah.
Listening to like old people sing or play accordion or something like.
Right, yeah. Well, I didn't mean to throw you off. Carry on, sir.
So it turns out that this violin has a kind of a neat history behind it. So before Bob's wife had it, it belonged to a doctor from the DC area who was alive or playing around the Second World War.
Mm-hmm.
And he was actually like involved with like smuggling Jewish children into the U.S. like to get them out of Germany and Nazi occupied Europe. So there's like definitely like a cool history behind it.
Yeah, geez.
But yeah, so it's kind of like my fiddle story, and I've kind of gone down that road instead of the uilleann pipe route. But there's still plenty of time left.
Yeah,
in life, that the uilleann pipes might be a thing.
Well, how did it feel though, going from, like having played the piano where you push the key and that plays the note, and the trumpet where you hold down the valves and that plays the note, and the bagpipes where you cover the hole and that makes the note, to the fiddle where it's like somewhere on this totally smooth board, it's like this is a spectrum and you've got to figure out where to drop your finger to get the note. Like it's kind of terrifying and overwhelming to me to even imagine like not having clearly defined buttons, holes, valves, etc.
It's kind of like a bit like playing trombone, I guess.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, like you just like, it kind of sounds like we're in the right pitch.
Right.
I cheated a little bit. Because that first violin instructor did say that like beginners will put like tape or something like on
that are kind of like fret marks, right?
Yeah, like so like on the fretboard.
Yeah.
Like to where your fingers go. And then you just kind of okay, like that's where they go. And like I have two friends that are music teachers, school music teachers. So I brought the instrument over to my friend Dan one day, and I was like, "Can you help me get this tape on so I can learn how to play this the right way?" And he's got a little bit of a better musical ear than I do, so he was able to figure out where the notes should be, and he took strings in college and whatnot, so he has to know all that stuff for his work. So that definitely helped. But yeah, it's a different bit of a learning curve than playing pipes. Like the thing I liked about it's like you could understand this as a trumpet player as well. Like the embouchure in the trumpet is key, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And that really can like hinder your range or whatnot. But with like playing bagpipes, you blow into the thing and it makes noise.
Right.
Now, granted, there's the whole idea of like blowing tone and like, blowing steady, but like you're not going to not get the full range of the instrument because your lips aren't strong.
Right.
Like,
you can at least make the sounds.
Yeah. So like for me, that was like a big thing. Like, it was like, cause I struggled with like the higher range of the trumpet. And I actually in college, I switched to playing euphonium in the band. Cause I was like, we had like 9 trumpet players, and I was like, I'm tired of this.
Yeah.
I want to go to like something a little bit lower.
Yeah.
But like the fiddle, it's a whole different mechanical thing. But again, you play the note and you make the sound, but like it's a little bit reversed in a sense because like you're starting. Like your lower notes are further away from you, so you're physically playing in like a downward direction. Yeah. But going up in pitch, which is a little bit interesting. So there was definitely a little bit of a learning curve, but like once I kind of picked it up, it was just like, okay, well, we'll start with like Rowan Tree. Minstrel Boy, or something like.
It's kind of cool. Like you had a library of tunes in your head already that you could then apply. And that
was like the great thing about it was like, and that was kind of like a cool memorization test, right? Like do you have a piano in the house or some sort of other non-bagpipe instrument in the house?
We only have 3 pianos right now and an organ, so we maybe have some unhealthy habits over here at my house when it comes to accumulating instruments.
there could be worse things to accumulate.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
So this would be like kind of like a fun test for you to do.
Yeah.
Take like a common pipe tune that that whether it's Rowan Tree or Scotland Brave or something that you've played a million times, you don't even have to think about playing on the bagpipes. Try to play it on the piano, and it's gonna be and play it from memory. Don't have the music in front of you. Yeah, you're gonna have a little bit of a struggle at first to like, what's the next note?
Right. Yeah.
What comes after that C doubling?
Right. Exactly.
And it was this like I had the same thing on the fiddle. I was like, I could play the tune on the pipes, easy, right? But like squeaking away on the violin, and I'm like, how does this tune go?
Yeah, you change those mechanics of where your fingers are and stuff, and it's like a double check.
So, but yeah, it was fun, and then like I ended up taking my first trip to Cape Breton that summer, which was a fantastic experience. And then when I got home, I started taking lessons online with Andrea Beaton, who's a relatively well-known fiddler up there. She's Buddy McMaster's niece and Natalie McMaster's first cousin and whatnot. So like she's from a very musical family. on both sides. And I took lessons with her for like 3 years. And that's like the great thing about like, doing stuff online. Like she was up in Montreal and I was in New Jersey. And, we were taking, she was teaching me how to play, all these strathspeys and reels and jigs and whatnot. So that was a lot of fun. That was a lot of good stuff. And unfortunately, I don't play as much now as I should, but life kind of gets in the way. And,
it comes and goes. That totally happens. Yeah,
the bagpipe definitely like takes precedence. Like I've been on this thing where like, so back in 2018, Catamount was going to Scotland for the Worlds, and one of the guys that was playing with us suggested that we would do like the 100-day challenge from
the dojo 100,
like from like 100 days from when we got to Scotland. So like we got to Scotland on like 6th of August, so like 100 days back from that. So like you're putting in like, I guess like May, I don't know, April or May of that spring. So I was like, okay, I can give this a go. And I didn't make it all 100 days, but I was like, all right, next year I'm gonna just give it a try, and I'm gonna do like, screw just doing 100 days. I'll just do like the whole year. I want to play the whole year every day. So I went out for it, and this was in 2019, and I got to like 45 days, and then like I was like up late for work and doing some reports, and then like I didn't play, and then all of a sudden it's like 12:30, it's after midnight, and I'm like ready to go to bed. I'm like,
dang,
son of a gun, like there goes my streak, and so like not that I like stopped playing, but like I didn't play.
Then you burned your bagpipes.
So then 2020 happens, right?
Yeah.
We come into 2020. I was like, let me give this another try. So I did. I started. It was great. I got past 45 days. I'm like, if I can get past 45 days, I'm good, right? Like I can do it for the whole year.
Right.
And then, March happens, and we all know what happened in March of 2020.
Yeah.
So there was really nothing else to do. So I would just play my bagpipes outside, and like people enjoyed it because like at least it was like, oh, at least there's something going on or whatever.
Yeah.
And so then I ended up getting I went to like luckily like one of my friends got married, and like I went to his wedding, and that was in Virginia. So like I even like brought, not that I was playing at his wedding, but I just brought my pipes down just to, because I knew I was going to be away overnight.
Right. Yeah.
So I was like, have a few tunes before the wedding, and then like I had a few tunes the day after, and then fast forward, it's December 31st, 2020, and I'm at 366 days.
Dude.
So I was like, I can keep this going. I can do it for another year. And I did. And then I was like, I want to do it. Screw the 100-day challenge. I want to do the 1,000-day challenge.
Dude.
Which I hit back in September.
Man.
And now I've just like, now it's very much become like a daily habit. I'll just play, sometimes I'll play longer. Sometimes I'll play like for like 40 minutes or an hour. And sometimes I'll play for, 2 minutes, depending on, on the day. But,
that's so cool congratulations, first of all. That's freaking awesome. But also it's so cool that like, it sounds like then it works, because by which I mean, I think Andrew Douglas talked about this with his dojo 100-day challenge thing, but I know I've heard it from other like self-help guru kind of like, tiny habits, get stuff done, those kinds of like systems that people make, that like the idea of having like a trigger that makes you do this thing every single day, like a habit, is that eventually, like right now you're not doing it because it's hard, but if you get used to doing it, then it's not hard anymore. It's just part of your life, And so it sounds like you've reached it. You've reached this point where it's like, it's just a part of what you do.
Yeah. It's like, I've kind of lost, I don't necessarily keep track of the days anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I was obviously like the first year, and like every like, kind of like these like big milestones, like 100 or 200 or whatnot. It was like, maybe I'd like record myself playing a few tunes and put it on Facebook or something.
Yeah.
and like funnily enough, like those later milestones, kind of lined up with like either like one day was on like I think it was like day 700 was on St. Andrew's Day. You know, like how perfect is that, right?
Very perfect, yeah.
Or there was like one day, I think it was like, it must have been 800 or 900. I don't remember which one it was, but it was like on the day of like, you know, Battle of Waterloo. So like June 15th or June 18th. So I was like, well, I know what tune I'm playing for. You know, I'm playing the Battle of Waterloo. You know, like that's so like, and that was kind of fun because it's like, oh, you can do like, you know, thematic tunes. Like, oh, I'll play like, you know, Battle of Waterloo and Highland Laddie because, you know, the Black Watch fought there, and I'll play Cock of the North because the Gordons fought there, and, you know, all these like nerdy history, historical bits.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just been. I'm gonna keep it going to see how long I can do it for.
Yeah, man. Why not?
I think right now I'm at day. I'm past 1200. It was 1200 like around Easter time. So whatever it is, I haven't played yet today because it's still early. But
are you specifically? Is this specifically Highland pipes, or are you allowing yourself for any kind of pipes?
It's specifically Highland pipes. I do have 2 sets of Highland pipes going, so sometimes I don't play the same set every day. So that's maybe like a little bit of cheating, I guess. And there have been a few days where I actually haven't played my own pipes and I've played like other people's pipes.
Oh, really?
And I'm like, well, that counts. Right?
It totally counts.
It's still playing Highland pipes, and but it's been kind of fun just to do it. Like I have a bandmate who's been playing. He's been playing pipes every day for like, I don't know, 15, 20 years or something.
Really?
Like he's just like, and I guess like, it's good because like talking about like keeping on track of your maintenance. Like if you're not only is it good for your physical endurance and whatnot, like to keep your lungs and muscles going, but like if you're playing every day, well, you can start seeing like, oh well, the tuning pins are starting to get a little loose, or like the drone stocks get a little loose. Like, oh, maybe I should fix this.
Yeah, you're like so perfectly like in tune, in tune. Yeah, you're like so perfectly like tied in.
Sometimes we're full of puns today, aren't we?
Yeah, we're unintentional. But yeah, that's what makes sense. Like your level of familiarity is just like so precisely right on, moment to moment with your instrument. You be very aware. It's not like
and like a happy bagpipe's a played bagpipe. All the way around. A played bagpipe's a happy bagpipe.
Right. Yeah.
Like I had it with like, so like I play like when I was playing with Catamount, in 2018, it was around 2018, we switched to those like tone protector chanter caps that have like humidity packets and whatnot. And I like swear, like I'm not like sponsored by them or anything like that. I swear by them. They're just so much easier. Like we used to use the Piper's Pal. I don't know if you ever used that, but it was like
never used it, but I'm familiar with it. Yeah,
it had like the like crystal-y looking things and the charcoal, and you had to pour water in it every so often. Like this, you just put the packets in, and you just like you look at the gauge, and it's like, oh, we're getting a little low. Like put new packets in. It's stupidly easy, and it really does its job, and it keeps the chantery nice and happy. And we've even found it like tuning time was like cut way down. Like I remember like it was our first contest of 2019, and we might have ended up, we might have like warmed up 30, 45 minutes. Like that was it. Like got the pipes out of the box. They were like sounding nice. We played a couple of run throughs, went to final tuning, and did the contest. Like, we ended up taking we ended up sweeping first and had a few AGLs that day. So obviously something was working, right?
That sounds like a dream come true to cut tuning time down, man.
And I've so for 4 years I was the pipe major of the Atlantic Watch, which, that being just kind of like a road/parade band, it's a whole, different mentality.
Mm-hmm.
And I was encouraging it, for people to use it, but I found it with the chanter that I was using with it, it was everything was just a lot more stable, and even our own tuning up time took a lot less. Granted, you're dealing with other issues like people not blowing steady,
sure,
all that stuff.
But you get that. It's if it helps you to get it gets other stuff out of the way, so you can focus on blowing steady, kind of thing.
Yeah,
if you spend all your time just trying to get tuned to where everybody's exhausted by the time you're tuned, you never really get to work on anything else.
Yeah, and when I started this playing every day thing, it was well, I know where my bagpipes are at. I know
every day exactly where they're at.
And also too, just it makes it a lot easier. So I started during COVID. I did we did a 100-day challenge thing with within the band, right? And the idea was at least this will be kind of a way to even though we can't meet for practice right now, we can at least kind of
you're playing together, even
play together ish. You can post a video or whatever, or say,
right.
And so I made it actually a proper competition, and I was okay, these are the rules. You gotta play your Highland pipes at least once a day. One tune, and it could be as easy as row and tree, and then you can put them down, and that counts. And then you also have to post in this private Facebook group that I set up, a picture or something, or a video. It could be, you can put a video if you want, but it doesn't have to be a video.
Holding up today's newspaper.
Yeah, or just a picture with you holding your bagpipes.
Right, yeah.
And then we're and I'm gonna sweeten the deal with a couple of prizes. So the first I made 2 categories. I was we'll do it if there's anybody that gets all 100 days without missing a day, they'll get prize 1, which will be it was a copy of Scott's Guards 1, and it was, I think it was 2. I think I threw in 2 CDs. I think it was at the time the most recent Field Marshal pre-Worlds concert, and the St. Lawrence concert that the Tourist Kill that it just came out that year.
Yeah.
And because I saw the concert in Glasgow the year before that, or 2 years before that, and I was that was fantastic. And there's also the idea of these guys need some good piping, to because a lot of them weren't really immersed into the piping culture, so they needed some good exposure.
Right.
And then if the other option of prizes was if nobody makes the 100 days, whoever gets the most days out of 100 will get the 2 CDs, but you don't get the tune book. And we actually had one guy that got all 100 days, and he was cross training as a drummer. So for a while he was playing as a drummer, but he was playing Highland pipes for that all 100 days, and he ended up he got a copy of the Scots Guards 1 and a copy of the Field Marshal and St. Lawrence albums.
Yeah, that's awesome.
The part of me was I really wanted everybody to do all 100 days of it, but part of me was very happy that only one person did it because there was only one copy of Scott's Cards that I had to buy, and one, I was
that's
like,
a relief.
I was like, man, like I hope they all don't do this. It's going to be expensive,
right? It's like, please do it, but also maybe please don't do it.
Yeah, maybe like miss a day,
Yeah.
So that was definitely just kind of like a fun way to like keep people playing and keep things going, and like we ended up, because our governor relaxed some of the like outdoor greeting rule, like outdoor meeting rules.
Yeah.
Like fairly early. It was like by like May, June, like you could have like gatherings up to 25. And our band was small enough at the time where like if we had 25 people, that was a good problem. That was like
if only.
So we started then practicing like in the school parking lot again, which was fun.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that was a wild time. I don't know how it was out west, but like out here, it was wild.
Yeah. I mean, for sure, crazy time for sure. Yeah, and I think we tried also in our band to kind of like do some things to keep in touch with each other and stuff like that.
Yeah,
and not quite as formal for playing as what you did though. That seems like a really great idea.
Well, I tried doing like a Zoom practice, right?
Yeah.
And like the first week, like I tried it and I was like, okay, this is not going to work. Like, because I had been taking like
they can be
lessons
so
online with Ian and Andrea, so like I knew how like you can't play together at the same time because of like the delay, and then like all that you'd have to like put people on mute or whatnot. And I was like, this is gonna be frustrating to do as a band.
Yeah.
So then after that first week, I was like, okay, I'm giving you guys like we can do like kind of like half-hour private lessons, so to speak.
Right.
Throughout the week, and like these are like time slots that I'm available, and we can just do like a half hour on Zoom. We can work on some of the band tunes or whatnot, and only a couple of guys like actually like took it up with me, which was kind of frustrating. It was just like, come on, you're not doing anything else, like,
right? One would like to see a higher level of like interest and enthusiasm.
Yeah. That was a little bit frustrating, and then I ended up turning in the pipe major sash that fall. I actually ended up moving to New Hampshire, so that was a good way for me to
good time to
retire.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was COVID was a wild time, and I hope we don't go through that again.
Yeah, I'd like to not do that again for sure. Yeah. You know what we did once in the band that I play with right now, that it wasn't during COVID, but it was a lot of fun, is we divided the entire band into Hogwarts houses, and like one person in each was like the head of house to gather sort of the stats for every day, and then every day we had like things you had to do, and if you did them, you got house points.
That's cool.
It was like ran for like a month, and then there was one of the houses won at the end.
Did you have the sorting hat? Like, how did you sort people?
Yeah, we did have a sort. I'm trying to remember how we did that. I think it was something like to get sorted. Of course, we knew we wanted pretty close to even numbers across the board, but it was like to be sorted. We had everybody send it. It's mixing in my mind now with like a similar like fitness challenge that a friend of mine ran once. But I think that we had everybody send just like comment on a Slack post a picture of an owl, and then we used some kind of criteria for like, all right, at least to get started, all the owls of anybody who posted like a white owl goes in this house. Anybody who posted like a small owl goes in that house. That was at least a way to get it started, and then we kind of evened the numbers up after that. Something like that.
Seems like a kind of like a fun thing to do.
Well, it's maybe specifically for people in our age bracket, people who are who grew up with the Harry Potter's books as they were being published. I don't know if everybody's as enthusiastic about that kind of idea, but it made a lot of sense for the people around our age for sure.
Well, the band was, I brought down the average age by a decade or two.
Ah, yeah, I see. Yeah.
Like I was pipe major. I took over pipe major at like 20. I was 25 or 26, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So Excuse me.
No problem.
Yeah, I think it was like 25 or 26. And yeah, I was the youngest, like, in the band for a while, which is an interesting thing. Like, there's like leading your peers, and then there's like leading
your
people,
elders,
like leading people that could like easily be your parents' age.
Right. Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, it can be a weird dynamic.
It definitely. Excuse me for the cough. Definitely was. But I learned a lot from that, and actually, a buddy and I have started a new pipe band in the area, which has been a bit of it's been a bit of a challenge. Like I said earlier, like we have more bands in the area than you can shake a stick at, so it's like you're dealing with like the problem of like a somewhat limited amount of people. And I say that kind of sarcastically because it's New Jersey and there's like a ton of people here. With like a high number of bands versus like up in Vermont, they had a recruiting problem as well because they just had no people.
Right.
There were like 2 bands in Vermont, minus the school band.
And half of the Vermont population was already in those 2 bands.
But there's like 7 people in Vermont and like 10 moose, it's hard to get numbers for a pipe band. And Catamount was lucky. We had a grade 5 and a grade 4. So we were, as like a full band, we were probably putting out we probably could have put out like 40 or something, which is like,
that's pretty big.
A nice big sound. And like my friend Mike, he was telling me it was one Scotland trip, 2013. I wasn't on this, but like they were done competing for the day. Both bands had gone out and competed, and they were like gonna go to mass bands, but they were stopping at like the beer tent first or something. Naturally, as you do. Yeah. And so they marched over to the beer tent playing Castle Dangerous and Collins Cattle. Oh yeah. And it was just this it was like a combined grade 5 and grade 4.
Did they think mass bands was already starting?
Like they were like their own mass band at that point, basically. It was like and Mike was saying it was just this like wall of sound that came over the hill, and he just like saw this thing, and everybody was just kind of like, who are these guys? Like who are these like crazy Americans? Yeah. That's like, so starting a new band from scratch is definitely a struggle for sure. It's a challenge. Yeah. I would advise against it. But, it's kind of fun. Like we had some students in the fall, but they had to stop for various reasons. Life kind of got in the way. Yeah. And then we just picked up another student the past couple weeks. He had played in a band in Brooklyn like 30 years ago. Mm-hmm. So it's just kind of like getting him back, teaching him again kind of thing. So that he'll be, I think, pretty good. But
that can help a lot. That's not that I know what I'm doing, but my friends and I who started the band that we play with now, we started in 2015, and for sure, very, very a lot of fun challenges that you didn't think were a thing that you suddenly get surprised by, right? But we did find that like when some marketing efforts were put toward like turning over rocks to find any pipers or drummers that maybe used to play that are in the area that don't play anymore, and kind of reactivating them, did prove fruitful, and that's a handy way to get some numbers going for sure.
Yeah, like it's one of the kind of upsides of being a smaller band. Like right now, it's just really two people. Mm-hmm. Is that musically you can do a lot more in terms of like learning tunes, like and that was kind of like one of the reasons why we kind of wanted to start our own thing, was like we wanted to do more than just play Scott and the Brave and Rowan Tree and Mr. Boy and Wearing the Green, and we eventually want to compete as a band. I don't know if that will happen, but hopefully within 4 or 5 years, I think is kind of like the long term vision we have for that. We'll be able to hit the grass, but like we played a bunch around St. Patrick's Day. We developed like these like 2 like 15-minute like pub sets, so to speak.
Yeah.
And I think we were playing in totality, I think we were playing 30 tunes or something.
Mm.
It was just and it was all different kind of music, and it was just kind of nice to be able to do that. And that's something that I wasn't really able to do in the other band as much, because it's I'm sure were you the pipe major at all?
I have been before, yeah.
Yeah, so it's you kind of have to play to your weakest player in some cases,
right? Especially when it comes to tune selection and how you're going to play the tunes and all that stuff. Yeah,
yeah, and you can't give them, it's advised against of giving them a binder full of music, 30 or 40 tunes saying here,
overwhelming. Yeah, maybe like grade 2 and grade 1, sure, but not when you
even in the higher grades, unless they're preparing for a concert, I don't know how much music they're actually playing.
Well, that's just me thinking somebody who wants to play with one of those bands probably has the experience and fortitude to be like, okay, give me the binder. Now I know how to take this into small pieces and work through it, right? That's not necessarily the case in your typical community band. Yeah,
it's how long does it take you to learn a 3/4 march?
So far, 12 years.
yeah, basically.
Yeah.
It's Dream Valley of Glendora only has 3 lines of music, and it's taken you 3 years to learn.
Yeah,
it's the struggles of road band leadership.
Sounds like the motivation for the inception of the Chanter rant right here.
I was going to say the same thing. I was when I started, I'm one of the original 6. I'm going to say that out loud. They started in February of 18, and I heard the first episode not too long after that. It was
you're one of the legit 6.
Yeah, and I was I can totally relate to what you guys are doing right now. These, just learn your music. It's not that hard, and I think I definitely identify a little bit more with Fusco being the kind of the bagpipe nerd of it all.
Yeah.
And, kind of getting back what I was saying, at college, I realized that not everybody has the same enthusiasm level as me. And if we did, if the band did, I think we'd be in better shape, because you can, it's one thing of having the skills, but if you have the enthusiasm and drive for it, you can work up those skills.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that makes a bigger difference really overall, is if you're enthusiastic about the thing, you'll learn the skills you need eventually. Yeah,
or I'm willing to teach them to you, but it's just, I guess that's life overall. I think I used that in a job interview once about my pipe major experience or something. I was I could deal with people that don't really want to be here, and hopefully get them motivated to be here.
Yeah.
I don't know if I ended up getting the job or not, but it was definitely something that I could draw on, which was kind of neat.
Well, I like that, not that I'm, in any way authorized to make conclusions about your life, Andrew, of course, right? But I like that, it's a visible thing as a third party observer to see you have allowed your interests or passions to carry you to places, to things. And I think that's man, I don't know, there are different takes on what makes a good life, but it seems to me at least an element in what makes a good life is finding something that you can be into that you can something you can be enthusiastic about and chasing it.
And even just the literal places that the Bagpipes have taken.
Yeah, I was thinking figurative, but you're right. That'd be literally places. Yeah,
I've been to Scotland because of the Bagpipes.
Yeah.
I've out of the 4 trips that I've taken to Canada. 3 of them were somewhat bagpipe related.
Mm-hmm.
one was like 2 trips to Cape Breton. I mean, I got like weren't like necessarily for piping, but like I brought my pipes with me.
Yeah, that had to figure into it, right?
The first trip that I went on, my buddy Ian, his good friend Rob was getting married, and Ian's family couldn't go. They normally go like at least every other summer or whatnot, but they couldn't go for whatever reason. And he was like, "Well, I gotta go play at Rob's wedding. You want to come? We'll spend a week in Cape Breton. I'll show you around." I'm like, "Is the Pope Catholic? Does it snow in December?" Like, kidding? I was like, "Sure. Let me talk to my boss at work," because it was like somewhat last minute. I mean, like,
yeah,
it was July-ish or late June, early July, and we were going in August, so it wasn't like hey, I'm
tomorrow.
going to Nova Scotia tomorrow, but
right.
It was a little bit last minute. I was like, let me check to see if I can get the leave approved and go from there. And so I did, and it was great. Like I went up to his house in Vermont, and then we left at like 6 a.m. and made it all the way there. We got there at Ian has a very good friend that he's been staying with up in Dingwall, which is like the northern tip of the island. Like you go a little bit further and it's like you're going to be in the water and then going to Newfoundland, right? So we got to his house at like 12:30 in the morning, the next day. Yeah. And it was just fantastic. And actually there's a fun story about a bagpipe with that trip.
Oh yeah.
So Rob, his great-grandfather, I think it is, this fella, Sandy McClellan, immigrated from Scotland to Cape Breton in the late-ish 1800s. And he was a piper, and he brought his pipes with him, obviously, as you do. And he had played, and I don't know if his son had played or whatnot, but like there were like 2 pictures on the wall, and it was like the Pope and the picture of Sandy, the kind of like the patriarch of the family, right?
That's appropriate. Yeah.
And Sandy might have been a little bit higher than the Pope.
Yeah.
And he had played the pipes, and they'd known that they had played the pipes, and it was like Rob got married in 2017, so this must have been in like 2014 or 2015, and somebody like happened upon these bagpipes. Like they were in a box under some uncle's bed or somebody.
Oh, really? Something.
And they hadn't been played since the 30s. They were thinking so we're talking a good almost 80 years. That so they were kind of in disrepair. There were some cracks. They were very dry, and it needed a whole new bag. And so Ian and his wife were up when these pipes were discovered, and Rob, they had like a family meeting, and they were like, well, we've come to the conclusion that the best thing to do is to give them to Ian, and we'll have his father, repair them, because Ian's father's a pipe maker.
Yeah.
So he can, restore them, repair them, and get them playing again. So he did, and Ian brought the pipes back up when we went up for Rob's wedding.
Oh, so he had them with him.
And he played those pipes at Rob's wedding.
Oh, dude, that's so cool.
It was really cool. So Rob was like telling the story, and like there was some of like the old aunts and uncles and whatnot that were like, they got very emotional from this, and it was like almost as we brought like the great grandfather, like it was almost akin to like bringing like an urn of ashes,
right?
Like it was like the same idea, but it was I it was really cool that I just had like a very small part in that in bringing those pipes back to Cape Breton,
right?
they drove my car over the border. That was like really the only small part that I had. But it was, it was cool that I was like somewhat involved with it, and like,
well, and even just to witness it, man, that sounds like a really, that's got to be like one of those palpable experiences, like you feel something in the air kind of thing.
So it's and that whole trip, like Ian and I we were kind of coming up with like different tune names, right? That that like to kind of like commemorate different aspects of the trip. As like, if you think about all of bagpipe tune names are all somebody's welcome to some place, or somebody's farewell to some other place, place or whatnot. And so we were. I just had like a running list on like a note, like on the note app on the iPhone. Yeah. Of just like, oh well, this would be a good tune name or whatever. And like one of the ones that I came up with, which I still haven't written the tune for yet, but hopefully I will eventually, was Sandy's Old Pipes. And so I'm thinking like probably like a Straspe or something, like a good Cape Breton sounding tune for that would be would be appropriate. But that was just like a really neat thing to be a part of. And like, luckily, I don't know how they got over the border the first time, because I mean these were made in the 1870s. So
you got the Blackwood restriction, is that what?
And ivory,
Oh yeah, that too. That's so right, yeah. So luckily, going into Canada, that's not really an issue. It's only coming back into the States, and we didn't have the pipes coming back, luckily. But like going into Canada, I was like, we were like a little worried, and we're driving. You could put like a brick of cocaine in the glove compartment to distract them, so they'll focus on that and ignore the bagpipes, right?
Well, like we were, and we also brought in like some steaks. We like smuggled some steaks into the country, which is, like you're not, so you could actually bring in frozen meat, like frozen and packaged meat because the reason why I bring this up is because on a trip, back up in 2 years after, we went up for Celtic Colors, which is in October, and it starts like Columbus Day weekend, which is their Thanksgiving. So we figured like, we'll have like, we can do like a Canadian Thanksgiving dinner, which is basically an American Thanksgiving dinner, just in October.
In October and in Canada. and in Canada.
But getting a turkey is like hard to do in Canada because it's just like, it's expensive. And like, my mom had one in the freezer or something, and she was like, we haven't used this. And it was like our local supermarket would be like, if you spend like $400, in the month before Thanksgiving, you get a free turkey.
You get a turkey,
something like that. So like, we had like a frozen turkey in the fridge that might have been from like last year's Thanksgiving. I was like, are you using that turkey? Can I bring it on the trip? She was like, yeah, sure. So I actually went on the like Canadian Customs website to check, and they're like, yeah, you can bring in one frozen turkey per person.
It's great that there's like don't try to bring two.
Yeah. So like there were three of us in the car.
Yeah.
So we could have actually brought in like 3 frozen turkeys.
Could have brought 3 turkeys.
Like that's a lot of turkey, and there was only 5 of us for Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
So, like, but I wrote a tune about that called "The 3 Pipers and the Turkey." And
that's great.
But like on that first trip going up, like we get to the border, and we're in my car that has Jersey plates, and Ian's from Vermont, and I'm from Jersey, and we obviously don't have the same last name or anything like that, and we give over our passports to the border guard, and they're like, "Oh, how are you guys related?" And Ian pops up and was like, "Well, we play in the same pipe band."
There you go. That's how you're related.
And this guy just kind of gave us this look like, "Oh, okay. Enjoy your trip."
Most sensible thing in the world to him.
It's like, I mean, I guess like you figure like, like New Brunswick, Ontario, like there's a lot of piping in those Nova Scotia as well. There's a lot of piping in those parts, but it's just like the guy was not expecting that answer at all.
Yeah.
And that was kind of a fun a fun thing. And like,
well, he's got to be careful watching out for those poultry smugglers, so it might have been you guys. So.
Yeah. It's like, luckily, like we were a car in front of us. They were from Newfoundland, and they had, they got open the trunk and looking in the hole. They were just like, oh, where are you going? It's like, oh, enjoy. Like that was nice.
Yeah.
It's always a nice thing to make, the border crossings easier.
Right.
Because like on that second trip, we had more of an issue getting into Canada. Like we actually had to like get out of the car. We had to go into the building. They like searched through the whole car because like we said that we were going for Celtic colors, and then we also said that we were pipers. So they thought like we were like maybe trying to get like a few gigs or something.
Oh,
and, like,
yeah.
Yeah, they're really big on that. So, but the border guard was a little bit like a just kind of like an angry fella, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so on the trip up, like Ian, I don't know who was driving. There were three of us. It was me, Ian, and Mike McDinch, who I mentioned earlier. I don't remember who was driving, but Ian wasn't, and he like wrote a like strathspey on the way, and we're the project. It's not finished yet, and it should be because it happened like 3 years ago already. But the idea was that we were going to write like our own milling song, like our own walking song.
Yeah,
in Gaelic that like described the whole trip, and one of the verses is going to be about this border guard, because like he was a little bit of a pain, and like that's like the number one rule. Like you don't be a pain to people that can write songs or poetry, because you'll probably get you'll get mentioned you'll be mentioned.
Yeah.
And like the other like the guy in like the office, like he was cool. It was like like he probably like he would have been like great crack at a kitchen party or something. But like this other guy was just like it was just. And we finally got through, and it was clear sailing from there. It was just like I'm always on the few international trips that I've taken. I'm always a little getting through customs. I'm always just a little anxious. It's nothing illegal or anything, but it's just like. What if they don't gin? Then what do you do? Like then you're stuck in Maine or you're like worse if you have to fly and you're like
you miss your flight and all that kind of stuff.
Like if they don't let you in, like and you're already in Scotland, like you've already landed, but they don't let you go through customs. Like then what do you do? Like so I've always had that just kind of like a little bit of anxiousness in the back of the head, which is probably unfounded. There's probably no need to worry, but
sure.
Such as life in 2022 and 2023.
Totally it was funny since I don't know who the heck it was. I can't get anybody in trouble. But this one time, I wasn't going international. I can't remember where I was going. I think I was going to Colorado or something. But I showed up to the airport here in Salt Lake City, but I was there at like 3:30 in the morning. Like I had a really early flight, and I was going zigzagging through the the rope maze that they set up to get to the TSA checkpoint to get in there. And one of the agents just like opened up the rope and let me and the other like 8 people who were there just walk through. And as we're walking through, he's like, y'all just come on through, head off to your gates. Anybody who's going to cause mischief isn't getting up this early in the morning.
Yeah. Have you had any issues like traveling with your bagpipes?
Oh, dude. Yeah. Like I have taken them with me, just stuff like this, like work trips that like I'm going to be away for a while. So it's usually my small pipes I take with me, but every single time I get one of the, my case that I have them in gets one of those special searches. I think it just looks suspicious. All those pipes in there, it just looks like some kind of assembly of something.
I remember the first time I flew with my bagpipes. Unfortunately, it was for a funeral. My dad's aunt lived down. She lived down in Florida, so we went down for the funeral. I played at the funeral, but my dad was like really anal about like the carry-on dimensions.
Oh yeah.
And like since then, I have like one of those those backpack pipe cases, and like
dude,
that works perfect for a carry-on. Like you just put it over the thing, you're good. Like but like I didn't have that kind of case. I actually had a hard, like, it was like a rifle case or something.
I have the same kind of case. Yeah, I know what you mean.
But like my dad had this like weird like box kind of luggage thing that was like.
I bet he likes Tetris.
He might. I don't know if he does it, but like it like the pipes wouldn't fit in them without like taking like the drones like completely apart and whatnot. But it met the like the FAA like carry-on dimensions. And I'm like, oh, this is gonna be fun. So I break down all the drones, right? So like the base drones in 3 parts, the tenor drones are in 2 parts, and I had the bag, the chanter, and all that. And then like I had my tuner with me, right? And we were at that point we were using like just like a regular Korg tuner, but it had a like one of those clip-on microphones you can clip onto the drone
and then run the cable down to the
and then it runs. So like I have these all sorts of weird looking pipes, right?
Yeah, even in my imagination it looks pretty suspicious. Yeah.
A wire,
yeah,
and an electronic device, right? Yeah. Like if that doesn't scream bomb,
right,
I don't know what does, right? And I'm going through the airport and whatnot, and like they're like looking through it, and I was like, oh, what are these? They're like, oh, it's a set of bagpipes. Oh, that's cool. And like they just went right on through.
Okay, well that
I had like no issue coming back, and then like a year later, I was doing some summer classes up at school in Vermont, and it was 4th of July weekend, and we had a 3-day weekend because it was between like the first summer session and the second summer session, and my buddy Nick he was in the Marines at the time, and he was stationed in Okinawa, so he was coming in for a couple of weeks of leave from Japan. So I was like, oh, I'll come down, and we were having like a 4th of July barbecue and all that. And I was like, well, I'm gonna bring my pipes because like I'm not gonna not play on the 4th of July, right? And so I had like a old like army rucksack that I was using as my like carry-on bag, and I didn't really need like a whole thing of luggage because like all my clothes were like at home, and like so I had like my bagpipes. I brought a tin whistle and like a pair of flip-flops and like a t-shirt and a bathing suit. That was it. Right? Not very light traveling luggage, and the bagpipes like fit in the rucksack fine. Like you take the bass drum apart and you're good, and I told them, like, when I was going through the like metal detector thing and the clearing thing, I was like, this is what's in the bag. It's like a set of bagpipes, a tin whistle, flip-flops, bathing suit, t-shirt, etc. And they put it through the thing, and then they take it out. And then they put it through the thing again, and then they take it out. And they put it through the third time. It was like, sir, we're going to have to open up your bag. And I'm like, just be very careful. Because these bagpipes are probably worth more than your life, at least to me they were,
right, to the piper they sure are, right, yeah.
And they looked through it. I was really worried about like them like breaking the chanter, right? Because that was separate, and it was a wooden chanter,
yeah.
So like, so they were like, okay, like it works out. Well, I got it. I was able to get on the plane. Coming back, I'm flying out of Newark. So, I was flying out of Vermont, which is like, it's a real tiny airport. Burlington Airport's like, like one gate, not one gate, but like one terminal. There's,
right.
It's an international airport only because like they have like flights to Montreal, like if a plane gets diverted. Yeah. Like that's like really the only reason why. So flying out of Newark, I mean, I'm sure you've flown out of Newark or flown to Newark, or it's like big airport, like 3 or 4 different terminals, like they got everybody. And like, so I'm walking through the airport with my bagpipes and getting ready to go through security. And I'm thinking like at this time I'll just like take my pipes fully out of the bag. I'll put it in their own little like crate to go in the screener so that they could see. Oh, it's a bagpipe. You don't have to worry about it. And like. And I had the bass drum a little bit sticking out of the rucksack because it's one of those like old like like it has like the front flap and you can kind of stick things out through it. And I'm walking past like 2 Port Authority cops. And I'm like, oh, nice bagpipes. So like they knew what it was, because like again, like the Port Authority has a police pipe band, and like know. Everybody, like it's like my friend Mike is.
Those guys probably actually played.
I don't know if they played or not, but like they're definitely aware of it, and like I had no issues in Newark. I just like, well, besides missing my flight, but that's a whole other story. I had no issues at least going through security, and and then like after that, I've been fine playing. I've brought my pipes, and I brought my pipes and my fiddle once on a plane. That was interesting because I was going up to Vermont for band practice, and I was like, well, my buddy Andrew, who I was carpooling with, he had to go up like a day earlier or something, and I had to go up a day later or whatever. So I actually ended up like flying to band practice. I felt like I was like one of those like grade 1 guys that like
you felt like a pretty big deal, right?
Like they like play like they're playing in like SFU and they live in California or something. Like I gotta go fly up to Vancouver for band practice. It's like So like, but there was going to be like a Kaylee and a kitchen party the night, that night. So, and I was driving home with my friend Andrew, on the Sunday. So it was like this like weird, like one-way flight. And I had my bagpipes in my pipe case with my small pipes tucked in, and then like a change of clothes and a blanket and like
tucked in there too around the bagpipes kind of thing.
Yeah, like the zipper almost like broke on the pipe case. So I had that was like my carry-on, so to speak. And you know how you're allowed like your carry-on on like a personal bag, so I had like that, and then like my fiddle case was like the personal bag or something.
Personal bag.
Yeah, and I come off the plane and I got like I got the bagpipes over on my back. I got like the fiddle kind of like draped over my shoulder kind of thing. I was like, I'm like a mobile Kaylee now, between the bagpipes, the small pipes, the tin whistles, it's like
you're a whole touring band there.
Pop up Kaylee, ready to go.
Yeah, jeez. Now, do you happen to have a recording of any of the tunes you've written, like the Three Pipers and the Turkey or anything like that?
I have a few recordings. Some of them are just on like videos I've just made and like put them on Facebook.
Right. Yeah.
I could send you a link.
I was just thinking that'd be a fun thing to insert there. I mean, really any tune that you've written.
Yeah.
I love getting tunes that people wrote on the show, so. Actually,
I wrote one. So were you aware of that? There was that really bad shooting in Nova Scotia like 3 years ago.
Was that the one that was like a kids camp kind of thing?
No, it was like it kind of went on for like 2 days. Like this guy just kind of like was like driving through it wasn't pleasant.
It wasn't like like at a place he was like driving around shooting.
Yeah, like it started with like I don't know the whole story, but like it ended up with like 19 or 20 people being killed.
The sad truth is, Andrew, that sounds vaguely familiar, but I sure you sure hear about a lot of shootings. So
yeah. It wasn't really covered on like U.S. news or anything.
We had other shootings to cover at the time.
And like COVID was going on and all that. But I heard about it from from friends in Nova Scotia and whatnot, and like there just seemed to be this like collective grief.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, geez.
Like across the province, because like that stuff normally doesn't like happen there. Like even as an American, I was like, you don't expect that to happen in Canada,
Right. Yeah.
And so like 2020, I was writing up because the band wasn't playing really. Both bands that I was in wasn't playing, so I wrote like a ton of music in 2020, and I wrote this one tune called Crija Brishta Albanui, or Nova Scotia's Broken Heart, and it was like a lament. And we ended up actually recording it. My friend Ian, him and his daughter started it, and then like we did one of those kind of like COVID recordings where like you get like everybody playing and like this like the
the split screen thing,
celebrity, what was it?
Hollywood Squares.
Hollywood Squares, with like everybody playing.
Yeah.
And like a couple of our friends in Nova Scotia played on it, fiddle and piano and stuff. But then it somehow got around to some folks in one of the RCMP bands, one of the Mountie pipe bands. And since a Mountie was killed in the shooting, they actually played it for the first year anniversary.
Oh, did they?
And that was like the pipe major of the I guess it was the Nova Scotia Mountie pipe band, because there's like multiple mounted police pipe bands throughout Canada. Each province has one, and then there's like a national one in Ottawa. But he reached out to me and he was like, "Do you mind if we were to play this as like our and like for like this like commemoration video?" And I was like floored. I was like really like super honored. Like unfortunately, it's like kind of for like a sad event, like a... Oh, totally.
I totally did. Yeah, like, it's like you'd rather the event never happened, but since it did, it's still kind of, it's an honor, it's
and it was like really, really cool seeing like a whole another pipe band playing like one of the tunes that you made. I would imagine that's kind of like how, like, not to put words in his mouth, but I would imagine that's kind of how Fred Morrison feels like when, like, Field Marshal plays like the hard drive or something like that, which is obviously a little bit more like happy than this lament,
right? Yeah.
But that, like, and they showed me the video when they were done with it, and it was like it came out really good, and like they were able to do it like live in person because it was like some of their COVID restrictions were a little bit less because they were a little more rural, and it was like really powerful, and I was like super humbled and honored by it. And then actually the pipe major reached out to this other guy who's I don't know if you heard that the Mounties are putting out a tune collection.
Oh, I didn't hear that. No.
Yeah, so they're putting out a tune collection this year because this is the 150th anniversary of the Mounted Police. Uh-huh. So they're doing like what is it, sesquicentennial or something.
Yeah.
Like tune book for the Mounties, and they asked me if I'd be willing to put the tune, if I would be willing to submit it to put in the book, and I'm like, yeah,
dude.
You don't have to ask me twice to that. So that's coming out in I don't know when it's coming out. The end of the year, maybe, or the early bit of next year.
Okay. Well, tell you what, before I post this episode, I'll check in with you about it. If we know by then when and where people could go for it, I'll make sure there's a link for it in the show notes.
Yeah. And there's, not to blow my own chanter. I was going to say to my own horn, but I figured since we're talking about bagpipes,
let's keep our metaphors on point here.
Not to rosin my own bow or whatever. I actually... One of my tunes is in Barry Shears' new book.
Oh, really?
That just came out in October. So that was really cool.
Dang, man, that's awesome.
Yeah, there's a fun story about how that tune happened, right?
Yeah.
So this was in 2019, the same trip that we brought the turkey over for, right?
The turkey trip.
Yeah. And so we left Vermont on a Thursday, and we drove from Vermont to, I think it was called Fox River, Nova Scotia. And it's on the mainland. It's about 3-ish hours from Cape Breton Island. And Ian has a friend who has a cottage up there, like a summer house type thing.
Yeah.
So she's an American, but you're allowed to, as an American, you're allowed to stay in Canada up to 6 months per year without having to need a visa and all that good stuff. So she'll spend about half the year up there, and she was still up there before she went home for the winter. So we stayed with her for the night. I made a nice little visit, and she has this friend, this lady Donna McNeil, who just had at the time she just had a grandchild, and this lady D or Denise, who we were staying with, had a bunch of books from like when her kids were kids, kind of thing.
Yeah.
To give to Donna to, for like
picture books
for her new grandchild.
Yeah.
So she was like, she works at this restaurant called the Red Shoe Pub. And like, since you guys are going to be going there anyway, if you could just drop them off, like, that'd be great. So like, sure. Like, we had room in the car, and like, why would
you had room next to the turkey, so you could
basically, yeah. So we had this whole box of books, and we were planning on, so we were staying in Mabu that night. And so Mabu's on the west side of the island. We were staying there, and then we were going to go see 2 Celtic Color shows that day in the area. And then that night, we were then going to go up to Ian's friend Stan, which is all the way like on the north tip. So it's like about a 2 to 3 hour drive from Mabu to Dingwall. And we were planning on just camping because like it's cheap and it's easy, and you don't have to worry about a hotel and all that. And like, we don't, Ian was a Boy Scout and I was, in Scouts, all that. We don't have to worry about, and it's just one night. So I was like, yeah, we can do it.
You rough it out.
But it's, October in Nova Scotia. So it's like not exactly the warmest time of the year.
Yeah.
And it was a little bit wet that night, and a little bit windy and whatnot. And so we get to the place where we were going to eat, this place called the Red Shoe Pub, which also has like live music, most of the nights in the summer, or like at least Friday, Saturday nights, fiddle and piano and all the good traditional stuff. And we wanted to like at least see, do we need to make reservations or whatnot? Because we knew it was going to be a busy night, being the Friday of Thanksgiving weekend, and then because their Thanksgiving is on a Monday.
Yeah.
Unlike ours, which is on a Thursday.
Yeah.
Unlike
the real Thanksgiving, right?
Yeah. And then it was also the start of Celtic Color, so we knew the place was going to be busy. So we're like, let's see if we need to like make a reservation or whatnot. Let's do that now. We'll go to the campsite. We'll get checked in. We'll set up our tent and whatnot, so that like we're not setting up our tents in the dark.
Always a pain.
Yeah. So, and we're like, let's just like drop off the books now, so that like they're out of the car. We don't have to worry about them. All this stuff. So Ian brings in the books to Donna, and then Donna's like, so where are you guys staying tonight? And Ian's like, oh, we're going to be in the campground there over in West Mabu. It's like, no, it's cold, it's windy, it's wet. Yeah, just stay with us. Like, now we didn't know this lady from Adam, right?
Yeah.
Like, she's like, you just stay with us. She's like, and Ian was like, okay, well let me ask the other 2 guys, and we'll see. And Ian comes back to the car and he's like, well, plans might have changed. We might have a place to stay that's like an actual bed and not a tent.
Right.
So like, yeah, like this lady Donna offered to put us up for the night, and we were like, sure, like a bed's a bed, and
right, yeah.
Like I had only like reserved the spot at the campground, but I didn't like, there was no like down payment or anything like that, so like I didn't like, we weren't really like financially tied to the
you weren't invested in it,
to the campground type thing. So I was like, well, we could just call and cancel and it won't be an issue. So we go in and we became like, we went into the pub and had dinner, and then like it so happened that my fiddle teacher's father was playing that night, which was nice. Great to see. Awesome. And so we stayed for the music and all that, and then Donna's husband came to pick her up, and we followed them back to their house, and it was maybe a 15-minute drive back. And it's like, now it's like closer to midnight. We're driving on these rural roads in Cape Breton, and I'm sure you being out in Utah, you have plenty of rural roads that are dirt roads and winding. You don't really know exactly where you're going.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we're following this guy, and he's like cruising down the road, and he's kicking up all this dust. And we're like, where is he going, you know? And we get to their house, and like we became like fast friends. It was, I think we were up till, I don't think I went to bed until like 4 because we were just like up chatting with them and you know, talking. It was great, and it was like instant friends. Yeah. And I was also having a little bit of issues with the battery in my car. So like that morning we like went to get gas, and like I shut the car off to fill up, and then I go to shut the car back on, and it's like, you know, like it wasn't turning. I'm like, oh, this is not going to be fun. Like we have a whole trip like this. This isn't going to be good. So we get going, and then like, but the next day we're at the McNeil's house, and I go to turn the car on, and like the battery was so dead that like not even the like key fob thing was working. Oh, geez. To like you know, like to unlock the car. Yeah. And I'm like, this isn't good. Yeah. Like, and luckily Blaine, Donna's husband, had like one of those jump packs. Mm-hmm. You know, like they have a bit of a farm, so they have like tractors and all sorts of stuff. So like they need that stuff, you know, because they're not like, you can't just call like, you know, CAA or AAA or whatnot. Like
I love those jump packs, man. I've got one of those in everything now. Those are so great.
So he got us going, which was great because like I had jumper cables in the car, but one, they were under all of our stuff, and two, my car at the time, it had one of those like automatic back, like the trunk opened like automatically kind of thing. Like so like, since the battery was so dead, I couldn't even open the trunk to get, you know, so like luckily he had one of those jump packs, and he got us going, because we would have been, if we had camped out, we would have been in pretty big trouble, I think.
Yeah, dude, that's the time that I bought a bunch of those jump packs to put into like our cars, our minivan, and in my car, you know, was when we've been out camping, and I'd used the car to pump up the air mattress, and then it was dead in the morning. Ooh. And luckily another camper who was close by had one of those packs, and I was like, I swear from this day forward I will never be found without a fully charged jump pack, you know. And so I was like, yeah, well, like we definitely like, you know, I definitely need to do something to like honor their hospitality. Yeah, so I was like, you know, I wrote this tune, and I guess when Barry was putting his new book together, Ian had sent the music to him. It was like, hey, like if you're looking for music, like there's this one tune that's, you know, written. It was written by an American, but it's written about, you know, written for 2K Bretton, so it kind of counts as an experience in Cape Breton and all that. Yeah. So it's this nice little like 2/4 march that I came up with. Actually, I wrote it on the fiddle. Like I was. Oh, did you? It came to me on the fiddle first before on the pipes. So, but you know, I was good. I made sure that it fit on the pipes because you know, I'm not gonna be that guy that, you know, writes fiddle music that doesn't fit on the pipes. So right. Then you know, you only you would be able to play with your you know, extended range chanter my or something like that. Right. Yeah. Yeah, you're taking care of the community. You're not going to abandon us.
Well, it's like I found these like great tunes, you know, that like these like great old Strasbays or reels that are like, oh man, what's that tune? You got to look it up, and it's like, you know, you look it up on like the session or something, and it like goes down to like low C and goes up to like high D, and you're like,
darn it.
There's like it's so out of range. There's no way that you could even like, you know.
Fold it in a little bit,
fake it with like, you know, like putting a grip on a high B or something, or like, you know, bringing it down to G and playing it like, you know, down a note or anything. It was like, you can't do this without like maintaining melodic integrity. Right. So I was just like, that's the one way to, if you really want to tick a piper off, is write a tune out of range. Yeah.
Especially a real good one that they want to play.
Yeah, and that will get them going.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that tune and that whole story has kind of become like immortalized, I guess, through Barry's book now.
Well, that's awesome, man. I'll make sure I put a link to where to Barry's stuff and, you know, his book and stuff too in the show.
Yeah, they've been selling out pretty quick. So I don't know
his
exactly.
books always do, man.
Yeah. Because I have his other 5 books, 6 books really.
You got all of them, huh?
I got the 3 like tune books for Christmas a couple years ago, 10 years ago, and then like when he came out with those second volumes, like the Play It Like You Sing It volumes, the green and the blue one.
Right.
I got those, and those are fantastic.
I still don't have either. I want to get them both. Yeah,
if you can find them. So the volume 2 one has all like the tunes in it. Mm-hmm. But the volume 1 is a little bit more like the history and stuff of like, local players. And it turns out that my buddy Angus, who lives here and he lives in Connecticut, he's McNinch's good friend. His like great grandfather, I think, was from Cape Breton, as was like all of like his brothers and his great uncles and stuff. And one of the pipers in the book is like his great uncle or something.
That's
like
awesome.
This like this guy like Angus the Black MacDonald or something. Because that's you'll find a lot like there's a lot of nicknames because like what we were saying about the Kings, it's like there's like 5 first names to pick from
in the whole village. They all have the same.
And then like you're either a McDonald or a McNeil or a Mackenzie or it's like which Angus MacDonald are we talking
right, it's not even the
like
first names, but the last names also match. So yeah.
Yeah.
So I was thinking. So I'm thinking, if you're cool with it, it'd be cool to open the show. We'll fade in on either the Lament or the one you wrote for the couple there in Cape Breton, and then we'll fade out on the other if you're down.
Sure. Yeah.
Which do you think would be more appropriate to start with versus finish with?
Well, I think maybe the Lament to start with. We're kind of starting on a dour note, but like we were talking about the language and whatnot, since it kind of has a Gaelic title that fits. And then the march, it's actually played on smallpipes, the recording that I have. So that would be I think that would be good because it's like a little bit happier, and we were
right. Yeah.
Kind of finishing the conversation with that. I think would be.
Well, let's
be good.
Yeah, let's do it that way. I'll follow up with you for the recordings, and I'll put them in post and put links to the stuff and everything. I've taken a lot of your time this morning. I appreciate it. I also,
no worries.
I'm not trying to cut you off or anything. Like I can find a graceful spot to fade us out from there into the tunes. Unless do you have any kind of prepackaged parting words kind of thing you want to share? Or?
I mean, not really. I guess like a somewhat shameless plug is I'm eventually putting a book out.
Sick, dude.
But I got to finish it first before I
right
do that. But I started because I had written a few tunes before COVID happened, and before I had written like maybe 4 or 5 tunes, and then like that meeting with the McNeils, and then like a couple of like COVID and like just having like a lot of like musical freedom and less responsibility musically. It just like opened this whole thing in my brain, and like all these tunes started just pouring out. So I've I want to put together a book of, I have probably about 45 of my own plus a few like arrangements and whatnot. So it's like I'm working on like
you definitely have enough tunes for a book. Yeah, that's a lot of tunes.
Yeah, working on getting everything written out and like all the other stuff that goes with it, like the stories about the tunes and all that stuff. So maybe I'm hoping by Christmas, but I'm not necessarily sure that's going to happen.
Yeah, you don't want to promise it yet, right?
Yeah, but you don't necessarily have to hold this for the book to come out. Like
no sweat. I'm thinking I'll put it out, and then maybe when the book's out, like maybe sometime next year, after it's come out, then maybe we can get you back on, and maybe you could pick a half dozen of the tunes, and we could talk about the tunes and the stories behind them, and talk about the book a little bit if you're into it. I think
sure. Yeah, I mean, I think I'm pretty good at this whole droning on thing.
Yeah.
The only as a nod to another bagpipe podcast, I made a big cup of tea before I started.
Ah, yes, perfect.
The only thing is that my cup of tea has since run dry.
Runs dry, goes cold, all of that. Yeah.
We'll need like an ad break and
Yeah, this is a 2-cupper. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. No, I'd definitely be happy to come back on again. This has been a lot of fun. Just chatting about bagpipes and sharing stories, and
that's what it's all about, man. But thanks, man. I appreciate that. That's I really like doing this show, and so it's like, well, probably I would still do it just because I enjoy it, but also it's very validating to think that somebody likes it. So I really appreciate that a lot.
And I've definitely like who was that fella that you had on with the 3D bagpipes?
Like, really Dave. Cool. Yeah.
Because I'm like, ooh, like maybe I could use that for my new band because if we need to get bagpipes for cheap,
right, yeah,
that might be a good way to do it, or something. So
and speaking of, his prices for his complete sets just went down because he finally got hooked up with some suppliers for bags and stuff like that.
Oh, nice.
So he's actually getting cheaper, not more expensive over time. That's
like fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely some good stuff to keep in mind. And like, yeah, it's you're helping make the bagpipe world smaller. I mean, it's already small.
It's already small. Yeah,
you're helping to make it. Helping to make it smaller.
Well, I appreciate it.
If you ever find yourself on the East Coast, you're more than welcome to come over for some tunes and some
tea, dude.
Tunes and tea, yeah. Like I'll go, or maybe some. We'll cook you up some Italian food or something.
There we go.
I'm sure I'm sure the options aren't great for Italian food out in Utah.
No, not at all. And that's the heritage split, right? You run with the Irish music and the Italian food. You got kind of the best of both worlds there. That's awesome.
Bagpipes and pasta. You can't go wrong.
Yeah,
right?
man, absolutely.
I'm kind of glad that you didn't ask the infamous pizza question about pineapples.
Oh, dude, but now I gotta.
But now you gotta. And,
yeah. So how do you feel about it?
Oh God, no. Like there are. It's like New Hampshire state motto, right? Is live free or die.
Yeah.
And that comes from a longer quote that was actually live free or die. Death is not the worst of all evils.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the all evils mentioned in that quote is pineapples on pizza.
So the real original quote was like, live free or die, for death is not the greatest of all evils. The greatest of all evils is putting pineapple on pizza. That's the actual complete quote, right?
It might be, yeah. It might be. Like I remember I was in Scotland, and we were like, so we stayed at a university for like in their dorms because it's cheap.
Yeah,
and then they have like a kitchen area, so you don't have to eat out all the time. You can actually like make breakfast and dinner and stuff.
Right.
And so like one of the first orders of business is like you get from the airport, you like check in, you put your luggage down, and then like you make a trip to Tesco or to Sainsbury,
the
local grocery store.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing in one of them they had like these like like prepackaged pizzas, like frozen pizza type things, and it was like pizza with haggis on it. and I'm just like, now I love haggis. Like I'm not slagging off haggis. I will eat haggis. I will be the guy at the Burns night that like eats everybody else's leftovers because they only want to have like a little bit just to say they tried it. Right. Feed me up on haggis, right?
Yeah.
Some cultural things should not mix. Haggis on pizza is one of those. Yeah.
Oh man. Well, now I'm gonna have to try that if I ever get a chance. But
it's like this similar thing. Like we, so obviously, like St. Patrick's Day is in March, and St. Joseph's Day is a big day for Italians, especially Southern Italians, and that's March 19th.
Oh, so, is it? Yeah.
So sometimes we'll have like a combined St. Joseph, St. Patrick's Day party. And, like this year, the 18th was on a Saturday, so it was perfect. So we had like a combined party.
Mm-hmm.
I remember one time we did it, and like my mom made like chicken parm and whatnot, and then we also had like the traditional like corned beef and cabbage and all that good stuff. So I was like, I'm gonna try this So I took the tomato sauce and like melted mozzarella from the chicken parm and like put it on the corned beef.
Yeah.
It was not good.
Didn't go well, huh?
I was like, this was a horrible idea. Like there are certain things that like shouldn't mix, and that's definitely one of them.
Let the Italians and the Irish marry each other, but let's not mix their food, huh?
Yeah, like, you know, we can everything else will be good, or like, you know, we can mix the music even, but like, let's keep the tomato sauce away from the corned beef. And so I guess
if we ever do get together, then we got to go get pizza. And I'm just gonna drive you crazy ordering whatever the weird. I'm gonna get like pineapple and broccoli on my pizza or something like that.
God, yeah. Well, like there's like, you know, plenty of good pizza around here for sure. And like, I was telling this to my mom earlier, you know, because there's like by us, there's like a new pizza place opening, and it's called like Round Pie Pizza. It's some like, I don't want to slag on hipsters, but it sounds like a hipster place, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm like, no. Local pizzerias have to be like either some, you know, guy's last name that ends in a vowel, right, or like, you know,
Tony, right? Like
Tony's Pizza, Vinny's Pizza, Romeo's, Sal's, you know, Giuseppe's. Like, no, Round Pie. Like, what is this? Come on,
right?
Yeah. Even though I'm only 31, I sometimes sound.
You get the crotchety old man.
Yeah, it's like back in my day. You know?